Welcome everybody to the Ohio Community Cat Summit. We're just going to give it another minute or two for people to arrive and get themselves comfortable. But don't worry, we won't be too long. We'll be right back and we'll start the program. So thanks again for attending, and we'll start things off in just a moment or two. Yeah, I see more and more people are logging in. Welcome everyone to the Ohio Community Cat Summit hosted by the Together Initiative for Ohio's Community Cats and Ohio Animal Advocates. We're so glad that you could join us here today, taking time out of your busy lives to talk about cats on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, at least here where I'm at in Cleveland, Ohio. We're excited because we're hoping to have over 200 people with us here today. But remember, this is being recorded. So if somebody wasn't able to make it today and you know they've registered, they can go back and watch the presentations for another 30 days. Or if you'd like to rewatch something, you can do that for up to 30 days. We originally had planned on holding two live events, one in Toledo and one in Cleveland in 2020, but those were both canceled due to the pandemic. So we had planned on doing that this year, but again, due to the pandemic, we weren't able to. So we were able to arrange this virtual event, and we're so glad that you're able to attend today. This is the sixth summit that we've had overall. The first 5 iterations were called Feral Cat Summits. We changed that now to the Ohio Community Cat Summit. I'm going to quickly review our agenda for the day, and then I'm going to introduce our speakers, and then we will take care of our first order of business, which is going to be to award our Community Cat Champion Award, which is an annual award that the Together Initiative gives out. Going through our agenda quickly, again, we're going to award the Community Cat Champion Award, and then Vicki Deisner of Ohio Animal Advocates is going to recognize our sponsors who've made this event possible today. They would have made the 2 live events possible, but since that wasn't practical this year or last year, they've so graciously funded this virtual event. So we're very glad for that and very appreciative, and Vicki's going to talk about that for a few minutes. Then Gregory Willey is going to talk about compassion fatigue in the time of COVID. Couldn't be a more topical presentation. He's a wonderful speaker, and I'm sure you're not going to want to miss that. Then Dr.G, Dr. Gonzalez is going to talk about the TNR process, specifically the neuter or the sterilization component, putting the N in TNR. Dr. Gonzalez, very experienced and knowledgeable, and you won't want to miss that either. Tabitha Kucera is a member of the Together Initiative leadership team, is going to discuss debunking myths and resolving conflicts. Tabitha is a very well-received speaker, always very in demand. So happy to have her here today, and you're definitely going to going to want to miss that. We're going to have a short break for about 10 minutes between about 2:20 and 2:30, as close as we can get to that. And then Vicki is going to come back and talk about constructing robust municipal partnerships, very important topic. And then I'm going to discuss making an evidence-based case for TNR. And finally, our keynote speaker, the Trap King, Sterling Davis, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, is going to talk about his story and Trap Like You Know. So you're definitely not going to want to miss that. Then we'll close out the event with a Q&A of all the panelists, a raffle. Everybody who's registered has been assigned a number, and we're going to give away some winter cat shelters. Then we will have evaluations. We hope everybody fills one out to let us know how we did. And then we'll have a few closing remarks, and that'll be the end of today's event. So let's introduce our speakers. For those of you that don't know me, I am Dan Spehar. I'm the co-founder of the Together Initiative for Ohio's Community Cats. If you're not familiar with the Together Initiative, we advocate for the humane management of community cats, and we promote collaboration among stakeholders, primarily through public education. That's who we are. I'm also an independent researcher who most of my work is focused on the management of community cats. Speaking next, briefly, to recognize our sponsors will be Vicki Deisner, who's the Executive Director of Ohio Animal Advocates and the Government Affairs Representative for Animal Welfare International, or the Animal Welfare Institute, I'm sorry. And then Gregory Willey is the Executive Director of the Friendship Animal Protective League in Elyria, which is in Lorain County. He's had many accomplishments there. And many accomplishments there. And he's one of the hardest working executive directors in the business. All these bios will be available on the Facebook page and in your handouts. So you'll have full bios. There they are. Okay, first technical difficulty. Here's Greg. Again, he's one of the hardest working executive directors out there, and he's had many accomplishments at the Friendship APL, and we're so glad to have Greg, who, and again, is a wonderful speaker. And then Dr. Alba Gonzalez, Dr.G. She's the medical director of the Rascal Unit Mobile Clinic and the Rascal Animal Hospital in Dublin, Ohio. So Dr. G is with us today. And again, Tabitha Kucera, she's an elite, fear-free, and low-stress handling certified registered veterinary technician. And she's the owner of Chirrups and Chatter Cat and Dog Behavior Rescue. And again, she's a member of the Together Initiative leadership team. Tabitha works out of Cleveland, Ohio. And then again, Sterling Davis from Atlanta. He's a military veteran, a successful musician, the Trap King. He's an elite TNR practitioner and educator. We're so honored and pleased to have Sterling with us here today. So I'd like to thank all our speakers. They volunteer their time. They're not paid to be here. They're all very, very busy people, but they've taken the time out of their busy schedules to be with us here today and put together their presentations. And we're just so grateful and so glad to have all of them here today. And again, in the past summits that we've had, we're so thankful to all of you who've given your time. If you need to reach out to any of us after the event today, in your handouts, as you see on the screen here, is a list of email addresses. Feel free to reach out to any one of us with a question, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. Now, our first order of business, as I mentioned, is going to be our Community Cat Champion Award. For some reason, my slides aren't showing. I'm not quite sure why. Well, we kind of given it away. I kind of had this hidden on my slide, but our Community Cat Champion for 2021 is Don Burrier. Don is a resident of North Canton. Before retiring, he was the director of the Elyria Public Library. He's a former board member of the Friendship APL in Lorain County. Now that was back in the 1980s, but coincidentally, Greg is here today. He's managed and cared for countless community cats over the years. He has provided over 300 winter cat shelters to residents of Stark, Summit, and Tuscarawas County over the last 3 years, volunteering his own time and resources. And last winter, along with Crystal Riggy of Riggy Rescue, he conducted a shelter drive where more than 80 winter shelters were constructed and distributed. So we want to congratulate Don Burrier, who's our Community Cat Champion for 2021. The Community Cat Champion Award is an annual award sponsored by Rascal Charities. I had a picture of Don with his cat and some of the carriers, but since my presentation isn't coming up on the screen, unfortunately, you can't see that. But I'll be posting that on our Facebook page and on our website, so you get to see all that there shortly. The Community Cat Champion Award is co-named after Toby Franks, who's the co-founder of the Together Initiative. He's a prolific TNR practitioner and a brilliant community cat advocate, and that's why, and the inaugural winner of the award, and that's why it's the Together Initiative Toby Franks Community Cat Champion Award. But again, congratulations to Don Burrier, very deserving. We had several other nominees who were also deserving. Very difficult decision this year, but Don was the unanimous winner. So again, congratulations to Don. Now I'm going to turn things over to Vicki Deisner so she can recognize the sponsors for this year's event. Take it away, Vicki.
Good morning, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Actually, it's 12:30, so I should be saying good afternoon. We want to thank our generous sponsors, and we have two. We were very lucky to actually be able to find two funders that really cared about this critical area of work. We have the Kenneth A. Scott Charitable Trust that is in Cleveland, Ohio, and the Binky Foundation, which is nationwide, and they're very committed to community cat work, but they also, as Dan mentioned, were flexible, thank goodness, in realizing that this year we needed to go virtual. We would capture more people that way that weren't afraid to, go indoors with the pandemic. And since we didn't know if next year there would be another variant, we thought, let's try it virtually. We are working with a wonderful production company that has helped numerous groups in Ohio throughout last year, the Techie Talk folks. And I will tell you, I think this is a benefit going virtually because we've been able to reach out to the entire state. And as Dan mentioned, we've had over 200 people registered. So we really want to thank all of you for joining us. And this is actually Binky the cat that was the originator of the Binky Foundation. We also want to mention to you folks, speaking of funding, a wonderful opportunity from the Ohio Animal Foundation. If some of you are not familiar with them, they were launched in 2018. And they have a grant program that has awarded over $4,750 in areas such as low-cost spay-neuter, feral cat efforts, wild animal issues, etc. The Ohio Animal Foundation grant application period is from May 1st through June 30th. So if you're not familiar, look for that. The grants are awarded in August. The typical grant range is $250 to $500. And for more information, you can look to ohioanimalfoundation.org/grants. Also want to point out, if some of you are not C3 foundations under IRS, you can also look for a fiscal sponsor that is a C3 to apply to this foundation for grant work. And we really are giving a shout out to them today. They wanted you all to know they are, interested in community cat projects. So please consider them. It really could help you out in the critical work you do on the ground. Talking about logistics quickly, we want to mention again that there's a 10-minute break that will happen midway, starting at about 2:20. There were resource handouts and evaluation that was provided in a 10/8 email yesterday. Some of you may not have gotten it. I know, there were a few bounce backs because they were work emails and that, but we will send this out again post the seminar with the handouts that we already sent, and actually with new ones that may come up because of resource questions you ask. We do ask you to fill out the evaluation and send to me at that address, because that helps us plan work in the future that you could be interested in participating in. It also helps the funders know what your questions and your areas of work are. And again, as Dan mentioned, a recording of the workshop will be available for the next month. We will send out in the post email that recording link and other information that you will need. And then lastly, I just want to point out Ohio Animal Advocates Community Cat information page for resources. The Community Cats, a guide for busy Ohio municipal leaders, was included as one of the handouts that you did get yesterday. And it's an important tool you can use personally in thinking about, how do I approach our local leaders to get them to do what we need them to do for our community cats. But it also can be given to the community leaders. We also have a cat resource fact sheet that provides statewide lists for pet food pantries, low-cost spay neuter, TNR groups, and where to report cruelty. You will also find on there the program of the United Spay Alliance, the Feline Fix by 5 campaign, and also Ohio Spay Neuter Connection. It's a partner program that OAA has with United Spay Alliance to list these issues, important, resources of spay neuter facilities, TNR, but other things that are happening regarding the issues of community cats. And then we also have listed community cat ordinances in the Midwest, and we will be adding shortly to that webpage also a host of ones in Ohio, because we are lucky enough to have interns from the John Glenn College of Public Affairs, and they did a great bang up job in the last 2 days in looking up every township in Ohio and found about 30 community cat ordinances. And these are good to use of examples of what you might want to try to get passed in your community, and what your community personality is, you might say, what ordinance out there fits that personality. So we just wanted to share that with you. And with that, I will stop sharing. I will hand it back to Dan, and he will introduce the next speaker.
Thanks, Vicki. I'm happy to introduce Gregory Willey, again, the Executive Director of the Friendship APL in Elyria. So whenever you're ready, Greg, you can take it away.
All right. So we're going to bring up slides for us, or do you want me to share? Either which way, I'll just introduce myself and we'll start there. My name is Greg Willey. I'm going to talk a little bit about compassion fatigue. I'm going to try to relate it as much as I possibly can to our to COVID and what we're experiencing right now, because I think we're all undergoing a great deal of stress during this time, and I'm sure that all of you have seen on Not One More for the veterinarian community, for those that are taking place in that, because there is a recognition now that those that work in and around animals and deal with the suffering of animals and see it daily and share sharing those experiences are very prone to compassion fatigue or secondary post-traumatic stress disorder. These are the same things that firefighters, police officers, social workers, nurses, people that work in and around other people's suffering and experience that. People that want to work with animals oftentimes have a great deal of empathy. And so we take on a lot of the burden of that and carry around the weight of the decision making because they can't speak for themselves, right? That's kind of one of the things that really attracts us to working in animal welfare, is providing a voice for the voiceless. speaking up on behalf of those that can't speak for themselves. It's one of those things that just really, truly is a profound part of what we do. In fact, it's the message the ASPCA puts across to everybody. We are their voice. So when we take those big ideas where these animals don't have the ability to speak for themselves, they don't have the ability to stand up for themselves, we take all that on ourselves and try to do that. And that's a big weight. It is a big burden to carry. And I want to point out that veterinarians notoriously have one of the highest suicide rates that are out there amongst professional staff. But what they then went on to discover was that people that worked in and around those the veterinarian community also were experiencing some of the highest levels of potential suicide rates, a risk of compassion fatigue. Those numbers were actually higher for those like lower level employees or rescue volunteers or rescue workers or people out in the community. And nowadays we can feel even more isolated than ever during COVID. And to be honest, if you're in the TNR world, if you're in the feeding world, if you're in the community cat caring world, a lot of that work can feel very, very isolated. A lot of that work we do singularly. We sit and watch traps and wait for the cat to crawl in, the small victories that are oftentimes shared just with ourselves, of watching that cat after 3.5 hours of sitting there, you finally get that thing. But it's oftentimes something you're sharing alone. It's not something that we share together. And so even our successes can feel very isolated and alone. And what we want to do is just start to recognize, as much as I'm glad that we're having this Zoom meeting, I always love when these groups are meeting in person, so you can just see how not alone you are, how many people out there in the community are doing the same work that you do. I oftentimes have to, when I'm going to a new home and dealing with a new colony of cats in our community, have to explain to them, they're not the only ones feeding in their community. They're oftentimes not the only ones offering care and compassion that feel the same way. But even those families that out there that are feeding animals can feel very isolated and alone and not really know what to do. What happens to these cats, what's going to happen. You have to constantly reassure them that there are other people doing the same things and providing the same care and have the same compassion that they do. And so it's always nice to be in a room full of shared compassionate people in work that is oftentimes so isolating. And I think the other danger for us nowadays is honestly social media. And I always want to try to kind of get people out there and thinking about what you expose yourself to and what you choose to expose yourself to. We oftentimes are sharing some truly traumatic experiences when we're working in animal welfare because we want to be validated. But that means if you're following people across the country experiencing having to make life and death decisions or seeing animals that are suffering and they're sharing all those stories out on Facebook and social media, it can be very overwhelming. It can feel like the world is a terrible place and that we are suffering from all that shared terror. And in fact, what I really want to express to people is I've been in animal welfare now for over 20 years. You would not believe it if you spend any amount of time on social media, but the world's getting better. There are more people doing this work now. There are more people providing care for animals now. There are more people, out there doing the same thing that we're doing and sharing in the same experiences we're sharing. And we are seeing enormous progress in animal welfare. It is both the boon of social media, because I honestly believe social media has done more to benefit and progress animal welfare related issues than anything that has happened before, maybe with the exception of Singing in the Arms of the Angels on those commercials. I mean, that was a pretty powerful commercial. But we're seeing real progressive change. People are choosing to adopt rather than go through breeders. People are choosing to rescue animals, save animals, foster, volunteer, get involved. You just see those numbers continue to climb and climb. And then COVID happened, right? All those people that were volunteering and doing this kind of shared communal work were suddenly left in the cold and isolated. And we have that double whammy of suddenly, you know, if you were doing TNR for years and taking care of a colony, you may have had trouble getting in to get a vet, to get TNR done, to do the work, to get those things that you had been doing for years. And you can feel like suddenly you're taking 3 or 4 steps backwards. But I just want to always remind people how far forward you already were comparatively. And yes, we're going to have to do some, you know, it has been a nightmare since we reopened, and we are, you know, back to the public, and we're seeing animals come to the shelter in record numbers. And this week alone, we had 2 hoarding cases involving over 130 animals. So it's been tough, a tough few months since we reopened. And we're all suffering that burnout and compassion fatigue. So I don't know if we can, are you forwarding the slides? Go ahead and forward 2 slides. So this is a great quote. The expectation that we can be immersed in suffering and loss daily and not be touched by it is as unrealistic as expecting to be able to walk through water without getting wet. To me, this really kind of, we have to acknowledge that the work we do, we are going to see suffering. We're going to see animals that are sick. We're going to see the kittens with the crusty eyes. We're going to deal with newborns that have panleukopenia, where we may, you know, if you're doing this by yourself without the resources of a shelter at your disposal, without the resources, you may not be able to financially afford to provide the care that those animals need. And to be honest, you may have trouble even finding a veterinarian that has the space or willingness to help at this point. And that can be difficult in and of itself. But we are all going to be touched by this. We are all going to be touched by grief. You are going to deal to some time having to look at an animal that has got an injury. I'm sure all of us have seen an abscess that's opened up on a feral cat, and it, you know, it's very difficult to see, and it's very difficult to know what to do or how to make a decision and what is the right decision. Can you treat that? Is it right to treat that? Can you make sure that you can provide that animal the care it needs? And if you make a euthanasia decision, is that euthanasia decision something that suddenly you're feeling the burden of, even though you didn't create the problem? We are trying to solve a problem, but oftentimes we're always associated somehow with the people that are also part of the problem. We're not, we're the solution to the problem. But we are oftentimes left holding the bag and carrying the weight, and it can be alone. It can feel very lonely, and it can feel like a very heavy burden that when you're carrying it alone. So I'll forward in the next slide. Compassion fatigue, emotional exhaustion caused by stress of caring for traumatized or suffering animals or people. I am so glad that in the last decade, there has been so much focus and attention paid to the animal world and the amount of compassion fatigue that registered vet techs, people that work in rescue, people that work in animal welfare are suffering. Oftentimes the people that are drawn to this type of work are already suffering from forms of post-traumatic stress disorder, from things that they suffered early in their life, and they're empathetic because of it. So they're attracted to this work because of the fact that they've suffered some kind of stress disorder in their previous history, somewhere along the line. And that's what makes us amazing at what we do, but it also makes us completely vulnerable at the same time. So compassion fatigue is also known as the secondary traumatic stress disorder. Symptoms are similar to PTSD. And we always have to be on the lookout for when our thoughts are turning dark. And at the end of this, you'll see resources that are available to you if you need them. I'm going to go ahead and forward to the next slide. It is 100% an occupational hazard of our work with animals. Whether you are an animal control officer, kennel attendant, or you are doing just rescue work out in the world, doing TNR, going out and being involved in your community and trying to make a difference in animals' lives. This is something that we are all going to need to confront at some point during that time. So I'm going to go ahead and forward to the next slide. All right, so here are some of the symptoms of compassion fatigue. And I like to bring this, I love to go through this occasionally just by myself, because I always say I am the poster child for compassion fatigue. After being in this for 20 years, I have suffered pretty much all of these. Whether it be one of the more common ones that I feel oftentimes is my inability to sleep. I will have trouble getting good and quality sleep. And I actually feel like sleep and sleep deprivation, just that exhaustion of, did I do the right thing? Did I make that? I tell people all the time, like every decision we make, if you've had to make one of those very difficult decisions with an animal, those are the things that you carry with you forever. It's very hard to put those things aside and place those and compartmentalize those to make you to ensure you're healthy. But you'll see also tons of things like poor self-care. Appetite changes are huge. Like if you binge eat or you don't want to eat at all, or you find yourself eating at 3 o'clock in the morning because you're not sleeping. But there's also just, I think the key ones for animal welfare people is the self-doubt and the feeling of hopelessness that sometimes goes with this, because it feels like it just goes on, and it can feel like we're not really making a difference. It can feel sometimes like you think you've gotten ahead, and the next day suddenly 5 new cats seem to have been dropped off in a box in the place where you've been feeding, and you're trying to figure out what to do. Can you get those animals into a shelter? Are they animals that you can rehome? Are the animals that are feral, and now you just got more added to your plate, and you got to try to trap those cats on top of everything else? And that first week you get 3 and you're super excited, and then you get 1 more, and then that last one just will not go into that damn trap, and you're just sitting there for weeks trying to get that last one. And you can just get filled with all this doubt. And it's the doubt of decision making. It is the doubt of the finances and financial stress and burden of providing the care that these animals need. And a lot of that's going to be placed on ourselves, and it's just that struggle. But let's go ahead and go to the next one. So, you can usually look at my face and see the exhaustion of working in animal welfare. But it's constantly feeling tired. You constantly say, I'm so tired. I walk around this place all the time. How are you feeling today, Greg? I'm tired. That's the words that come out of my mouth all the time. Physical tension in the body. My shoulders are always up to my ears. I'm so stressed out. I like to take a little time and sometimes pet a cat and just make sure I do some of those things that are healthy to kind of remind myself why I do these things. It helps me sometimes de-stress, bring my shoulders down, just listening to the purr of a cat in my lap and just allowing that to kind of just flow away. But physical pain, headaches, I hear this all the time with people in animal welfare, headaches, migraines, back pain, those type of things that you just, I'm sure anybody who's had to lift 10 traps and in and out of a car with a 10-pound cat inside of them, you're lifting them in a van, taking them to the clinic. At the end of the day, it's just exhausting. Your back hurts, you're bending over, you're doing all those things. As much as it seems easy putting a trap, everybody makes it sound so easy putting a trap up and getting it down. You're bent over, you're hunched over, you're sitting there trying to get that bowl of food just right at the back of the cage. That's it, all these things that we do. They're actually very physical, and it's very hard, and it can be very demanding. So I just want people to always be aware that, like, what seems easy, the repetitive nature of what we do and the hardship of what we do, we all carry that burden with us. We all carry all that weight on our shoulders. So yeah, recognizing all these things is really, really important. We'll go to the next slide. These are just breaking down more of some of the symptoms of compassion fatigue. Emotional shifts, I'm sure if you're suffering from this, you can find yourself, I do this, I am guilty of this from time to time, just starting a fight. God knows where it comes from. Someone will just say the wrong thing, the wrong word, and it will just trigger me, and I will be off and ranting. And it's very difficult, and you got to kind of always try to watch those things and know that you're doing those things when you're so emotionally charged. But there's the other side of it, which is just wanting to withdraw, be isolated, be alone, not be bothered, not be, you want to ensure that you have that ability, you see that in you as well. So there's a lot of guilt that goes along with it, because I can understand and I can empathize with a lot of people in the community that are doing a lot of this work out of their own pockets. And when you work for a shelter, when you work for a bigger organization, maybe you're a very popular organization, maybe you're someone that is really good at generating lots of funds and resources because you're really good. Well, some other person may not be that ability to communicate or use social media as well as some other people are. And you can feel some guilt about that as because you have more opportunities, or you can feel anger because you see somebody else doing so well, and why can't they help you? And there's a lot of that. And I think we've all experienced this. There's just the thing, we give so much time, we give so much money, and we give so much energy, and it can oftentimes feel taken advantage of, overlooked. People don't seem to care enough. We don't feel anyways. They may not understand us. But ultimately, all those things lead to more anger and irritability and resentment. And I got to tell you, 100 times over, this is the one I've been trying to watch myself the most lately, which is the idea of I'd rather just be alone. I don't want to go out. I don't want to go to a party. No one understands what I'm going through. No one understands what I've seen. I can't explain it. I can't make people understand the level of anxiety and stress that comes with what we do. You can, and the worst is when people try to that aren't in this, try to share some story that makes you feel like it belittles your experience because they've had some sad moment, one sad moment, and it can feel that way. It can just cause anger. They're not trying to be mean, but that's there. So I'm just like, well, there's no point in me going to a party. I should just stay home and let you go have fun. And I'm going to just sit and veg out and binge watch whatever. So go to the next screen, please. So if we go to the next, so difficulty, I think this is one that we're all experiencing. This is actually something that I think is related as much as anything else that's so important out there, is difficulty in seeing multiple perspectives or new solutions. This is so important. We are becoming more and more of a society that's isolated in our worldview. We share oftentimes the same opinions. We don't celebrate diversity. We literally go and seek exactly the same ideas and same sentiments on social media that reinforce our own ideas and reinforce our own beliefs. And we have become so ingrained in those ideas that we're never going to change any other side or any other opinion. We have to be open all the time to ideas of change and that things can be done better. Maybe they can be improved. Maybe we just have to listen to people, and we just want to get that. We need to do that more and more and more. We need to engage. We need to engage others, and we need to try to do that. But the problem is, like, what I find sometimes with a lot of the cat people is that they are like the animal that they care for. I have a lot of cat-like tendencies, which is just I want to, just kind of be left alone. I'm real catty. I can get, my claws come out real easy. And oftentimes I like the idea of going out and being by myself and being alone and just trapping and getting away from the shelter for a while and all the chaos and craziness here and all the noise and just being out there and being quiet. And, but I need to also open myself up to that experience and sharing that experience. So we'll go to the next screen. So this one is obviously, I don't need to share too much personal detail, but this is always the hardest one. This is the thing that you have to focus on just as much as your own personal self-care is the care of those around you, whether it be family, friends. You have to make an effort, a concerted effort to reach out to people and be around people and not so withdrawn. You can get lost in the work. You can get lost in this. I watch this happen to lots of my peers where they just throw themselves in. It never ends. Maybe they work in a shelter and they run a rescue in the evening and all they're surrounded by is that just animal welfare experience. And sometimes we do need to be careful about that. We need to create boundaries. We need to work really hard and strive to create a world that exists that we know when the time stops and when the time starts for taking care of others and versus taking care of ourselves and making sure we're doing things that make us healthier. That sense of persecution and martyrdom is, that just is once again very pervasive within animal welfare and animal rights and animal organizations, is that we're the only ones that can do this. If I don't go out and feed these cats, if I don't go out and do these things, no one else is going to do it. No one else is going to do it. So I'm going to go do it. And no matter how big the task gets, no matter how big the job gets, no matter how much I just worked 10-hour shift somewhere, and now I'm going to go and spend my entire evening, night after night after night, going to care for colony after colony after colony of cats and making sure that I know each one and I know how they are. And it's just that just sheer idea that like we can't even ask for help, that we shouldn't even ask for help. This is our burden alone. What's not? These are community cats. These belong to the community. The community needs to help, not just one person. So let's go to the next slide. All right. Friendship doubles our joy and divides our grief. And this is one, once again, I think is really beneficial when you look at the number of participants in here. If you look at the number of people that are involved in community cats throughout Northeast Ohio and around the world and around the country, this is a community experience that we need to embrace, that we need to be together, that we need to share in and lift each other up and be there for one another and find a way. And I hope that overall, after this is done, we can connect, and it may be in a limited way, just to share in those experiences and try to find, and I'm going to be honest, try to find ways to tell our stories, not always as these grim stories of defeat, but try to find that positivity in the story, that the excitement in them, so that when we share them with our friends, we're not bringing them down. We're trying to lift them up and say the world can be a little bit better, and I'm making the world better, rather than I'm drowning in fur and kitty litter and cat hair. And so we just want to get past all that and try to share those things so that we're kind of lifting each other up and supporting one another. And it's easier when it's more positive than sometimes when it's always kind of on the depressing side. I mean, I can't even imagine. I have so many friends that have blocked me on Facebook because of some sad story that they're just done with sad stories and they're just like, I'm blocked. So, my hope is that I can kind of undo that. And I'm really focused on trying to make my messaging, my social media posts as positive as I can be, but so they're not quite so bad. But even then, I'm posting every day and it can be overwhelming, even following even a positive message. It just is like, holy cow, someday it's gotta get better. So go ahead. So this is the most important thing, coping with compassion fatigue. Finding time, I don't care. Now, I'm gonna sit there and say exercise. Exercise is really awesome, but there are tons of ways to exercise that are healthy. Just going for a walk around the block, just changing something to make you feel healthier, to breathe and relax, to get outside and do something that is healthy. It can start small. It can start, go outside and lift some cats and traps. You know, that's a 15-pound weight lift right there. We're getting that kind of work in. Lift, you've ever loaded a bag of cat food, like 20 bags of cat food from Rural King into the back of your vehicle. You know, that's a workout, and we just got to do it. We got to do that exercise and make that happen, make ourselves a little healthier. That self-care is so important. And this one is my bugaboo myself. Maintain a personal life even if you don't feel like it. I am the king of trying to get out of going to any event or party. I just always, you know, it's not my cup of tea. I can oftentimes feel very stressed and out of place. I can feel very isolated even in a group setting. And I have really to try to make this a point. I'm trying to make this, and actually it was so great because as I'm giving this lecture now, and let me remind you, I am not a psychologist. I am not a doctor. This is 20 years of experience and meeting with tons of people and trying very hard to work with the staff that I know this is a burden for, working with staff and volunteers that care for this every single day and trying to do that. I have a professional that comes in and helps my staff just take a moment once a month to breathe and go through breathing exercises just to kind of decompress and de-stress. And then she meets with them afterwards to work out some physical self-care afterwards, if they want to meet and actually share and go through more. Yeah, and I'm not even doing enough. I honestly, you know, there's so many things that I know my staff experiences and goes through, and I always want to just be there and make sure they're getting the help that they need. And that mostly a lot of it just comes down to being aware enough to go and seek help. And when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling anxious, when you have those thoughts coming across your mind. So here's the one thing I always want to remind people of, because this can oftentimes be a real barrier between people that work in animal welfare and spend a huge amount of time in animal welfare. I'm gonna be honest with you, their sense of humors are oftentimes what they would call gallows humor. They can laugh at things that you may find not funny at all. It is a coping mechanism. It is part and parcel of what we do in our day-to-day care and work. And it doesn't mean that they don't care, and it doesn't mean that they're not compassionate. It is just a form of, it's a form of an armor. It's a form, a sense of humor can be an armor for us. It can protect us from the work that we do. It allows us to try to see things in sometimes a different light, and it's hard. Set limits between work and home activities. This one's really, really hard for you guys out there that are doing this is strictly volunteer work. You know, you have to still make sure that that thing doesn't overconsume, that thing doesn't take away from your time with your family and your friends and your loved ones. You can do that at the expense of them. And sometimes you might find you use as the reason not to engage those people. I have to go take care of cats. I have to go do this thing, so I can't be at so-and-so's birthday party. Be very conscientious that that's a path you really want to try to avoid. You want to try to set those barriers. You want to try to set those things and just say, this is my compartmentalized time. I am going to feed from this time to this time, and this is what I'm going to dedicate to it. And when you start to see it start to creep outside of that time, you need to know that that's probably that's an encroachment on your time and others' time with you. So be very careful with that. and this is why I get to this, and this is why I think these topics are so important in places like this. Realizing there's so many other people out there like you. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. We are all in this together. We're all doing this together. We're all sharing the same experiences. This whole room, I mean, if you have not followed the Trap King, he is a rock star. And I mean, like, he makes this fun and exciting, and he reminds us that this doesn't necessarily have to be all bad and all sad. I mean, you spend any time with Tabitha will remind you that cats are just, I mean, just amazing to be around, that there's so much more than you realize, that they can do more. That we, in animal welfare, have spent the last 30 years looking at cats as a problem that needs to be solved. And if we all share this idea that cats are nothing but a problem, then the world is going to look at cats as a problem too. And they're going to fill your lives with all those cliche sayings about how cats are a problem, cats are an issue, cats are this, cats are, you know, we have fed the idea that, you know, for a lot of these people, that cats being rounded up and euthanized is a solution, because it seems like this unbearably big problem that we've made it over the last 20 years. It's not a problem. They're worth helping. They're worth going out and taking care of. They're worth making better. They're a big, huge part of our lives. They're the, you know, #1 companion animal in America. More people have cats and multiple cats, and they are part of our lives, and they're worth fighting for and speaking up for. They are not a problem. They are an asset. They are a joy to have in our community, and they make our communities better and stronger. So we just need to always feel that. And there are thousands of people, millions of people that share that same view that you have. So just know, even when you're sitting out there by yourself and you're feeding, and I know when you know, if you got colonies that you take care of, we got colonies that we take care of. You can feel very lonely and cold in the middle of January, going and taking care of a colony and feeding a colony in the middle of January by yourself on those gray, long winter days. And, you know, just remind yourself that there are thousands of people, all these people in this room right here, oftentimes are doing that same work, whether they're sitting on a spay neuter truck, trying to keep the heat going as best they can on their spay neuter truck, doing the TNR work that needs to be done, and freezing their toot off, trying to provide low cost spay and neuter to our community. I think it's just amazing. So go on to the next slide. I think I'm hoping I'm kind of towards the end. All right, just these are 6 habits to be aware of. Keep friends close, give thanks, thank people all the time. If someone makes a donation or buys you cat food or does something, give thanks, and practice kindness. Try not to be mean. Don't be mean-spirited. Try to drop grudges. Don't engage really hostile activity on Facebook. Just let it wash over you. Next slide. This is what I wanted to get to. This is the last slide. Help is available. If you're depressed, you feel those dark thoughts coming in, there is tons of help available. There are people waiting there to help you deal with this, help you deal with the problems that you're going through and struggling with, and just understand it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask people for help. Please always ask for help. That's all I have to say. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, Greg. That was such a great presentation. I'm sure everybody appreciated it, especially during this time right now. And I mean, you was so genuine and from the heart, and we really appreciate you giving it. And thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
Now it's time for Dr. G, Dr. Alba Gonzalez of the Rascal Unit, and she's going to talk about the neutering process.
Thanks a lot, Dan, for the introduction. Let me share my screen here. Share. Excellent. Now, all right, here we go. All right, well, my name is Dr. Gonzalez. I'm a veterinarian in Ohio. I graduated from The Ohio State University back in 1999, and I have spent a large amount of my practice doing low-cost sterilization in the state of Ohio. So Some of you may recognize the Rascal unit. So it's a mobile facility that travels throughout the state doing local sterilization. So what is the Rascal unit? We created this service back in 2006. And the reasoning behind that is that I was working in general practice, and we were helping different rescues and shelters with trying to take care of the sterilization of animals and animal population. And we realized that a lot of the animals that some of these shelters were bringing us were coming from rural areas in Ohio. So the problem became, why is there overpopulation from these areas? And it was because there was no affordable or accessible sterilization services. So the easiest way in my mind was, let's get a truck and let's take it to these areas and do our own thing. And I honestly thought that this was going to be kind of like a little side gig, and little did I know this was going to consume my entire life. And it's been a great trip. Now, in addition to doing the sterilization and wellness cares for dogs and cats, we also provide other services. We'll do some dental cleaning. We'll do some mass removals. We do some small mammal sterilizations, even though the majority of our patients are dogs and cats. We will do some rabbits and rats and sugar gliders, and then some eye procedures. So the importance of TNR for us. Why do we believe in TNR? It's because it's humane population control. And the word humane is really important to me. I personally have a master's degree in veterinary forensics. I'm interested in helping identify and curb animal cruelty and neglect. And to me, having a humane alternative to anything is going to be important. And this is a way to control cat overpopulation. And I have underlined overpopulation because we need to understand that TNR is a way to keep the population under control. And then over a period of time, then we are decreasing that population in the environment. So another important thing, as a veterinarian, we're improving the quality of life of community cats. So for most TNR people, the importance is, again, just controlling the litters, stopping the litters. But as a veterinarian, I want to make sure that these animals have a good quality of life. Public health is important. So even though there's not a lot of cases of rabies, and there hasn't been a case of human rabies in Ohio in a long time, by doing TNR, these cats get rabies vaccinated, and then we're doing a service in that sense to the humans in the community. And then we're decreasing shelter euthanasia rates. So there are people that will get these cats, that will take them over to the shelter, try to find them a home, and little do they know that these cats, sometimes their behavior is not amenable to being in a shelter situation, and then they end up being euthanized. Also, having an overburden of cats in a shelter is going to increase the euthanasia rate. So by doing TNR and getting these community cats sterilized and released back into the community, we are helping the cats stay in their environment, but then we're also hopefully helping the shelters with controlling the euthanasia rates. So the day of the surgery, as far as, sorry about this. So when animals are coming into our clinics, really important to have the cages or the traps covered. And that's going to be to keep these cats as calm as possible. The other important thing for us is going to be having complete paperwork. So the color of the cat, the coat length, if they're an adult or a kitten. We don't expect trappers to know every detail about these animals, but just something that can help us identify these animals. Proper labeling on traps, super, super important. All the traps, the cages, everything looks similar. So we want to make sure that we're getting the cats back into the proper carrier, into the proper trap. One thing that we recommend is not naming cats, just assigning a number, just to make it simpler, easier for us to keep track of who these cats are and kind of where they go and where to place them. And finally, goes along with compassion fatigue, be patient. Everybody in TNR works really, really hard. Everybody, the organizers, the veterinarians, the staff, the assistants, everybody's working really, really hard to get all of these animals taken care of. So being patient, being nice to each other and, you know, getting along for the day. All right, so things that veterinarians request and that we hate to see and we try to avoid. First, one big recommendation is do not open the trap once the cat is in it. If you're gonna have a trap for more than one day, there is another image coming up a little bit further out that has the little fork that goes into the traps so that you can change their food and change their water. Don't bring two cats in one enclosure. So cats that can go in a cage, if you put two cats inside of a cage, they're going to be okay when you're in your facility, in your location. But once you take them out of that environment, they are going to attack each other. And it happens very frequently, and it's not safe for them. Now, in some situations, you have two cats that run into a trap. We see that a lot with kittens or sometimes with a mom and kittens, and that's fine. However, always bring an extra trap to put them in after the surgery has been completed. And we ask that please, please, please never bring a feral cat in an enclosure other than a trap, because you may be able to coax this cat into a cage, but it was not going to come out voluntarily. So this video here is a lighthearted reenactment of a kitten letting us know what cats think about being in a cage and having a human trying to get them out. And clearly cute and adorable because he's only about 2.5 pounds and cannot do a lot of damage. But when we get this kind of a kitty, and cats, we really appreciate when they come in with signs like that, like the breed is a miniature panther because he was a very angry little cat, or alley cat who was not nice and she'll attack, bite or scratch, and be careful. Knowing that the cat inside of the cage is not nice helps us a lot. However, we still have to deal with this. So as you can imagine, that cat is not going to voluntarily come out. It's not going to let us come in. And it's a problem in a lot of different senses. First of all, it's a problem for the cat. This cat is stressed. This cat is not having a good time. It's afraid. It's out of its environment. It's not necessarily attacking us because it's bad. Maybe it's in its own environment. It will come to the caretakers and be okay. But we have taken it to from their safe place to a strange location with strange people, with a lot of other animals, other cats, other smells, and it does not want to come out. So the cat is not being treated properly. And then second, it is not safe for the staff. So we have to get this cat out of there. We have to make sure that we're not injuring the cat and that our staff is not getting injured. This particular cat, we were able to get him into a bigger cage and then use a large cat net to safely control it so that we could give it an injection of sedation. But as I'm going to show in a little bit, it's so much easier to do when they are in a humane trap. So for the day of the surgery, when somebody's bringing us a TNR cat, right, this is the way that we want to see them. We want to have them inside of the trap. And then that is the fork that I was talking about. So our staff is able to get the cat into one side of the trap, get that fork in there, and then have the cat safely secured into that area. So as you can see, there's no stress. The staff's actually pretty relaxed. They just give it a quick injection. And once the injection is done, they remove the fork and then wait for the cat to fall asleep. And then we can safely get it out and have surgery. And then after surgery, get him vaccinated, get their tip, make sure that they have an examination to see if there's any issues or problems that we need to address, and then put them back in their trap for recovery. So little public service announcement for everybody. Tipophobia. This is a term that I have created that is the false idea that tipping is going to hurt or keep a cat from being adoptable, or that you know who the cat is. So we absolutely believe and feel that all community cats should be tipped. we recommend using the left ear. I know that there are some groups that use the right ear because they want to see that those are the cats that they did, but that's not really the point of doing a tip. Doing a tip is so that people will know and recognize that a tip has been done, that a cat has been sterilized. Ear tips save money, resources. They're safer for the cats, and they show people that these cats are cared for. And an ear tip doesn't mean that the cat is bad. We have had people that have brought us barn cats, and they refuse to have them ear tip because they say that they know which one the cat is. And a month or two later, they come back for surgery and they bring us the same cat. So it is, cats that are outside, it is very difficult to know which cat is which. So we want to make sure to get them ear tip. And as far as for the community, if somebody sees these cats walking around, they know that they have already been fixed. So they're not gonna, if they accidentally trap them, they're just gonna go ahead and put them back. So always tip, please. So things that are add-on services, what we would consider as an add-on service for feral cats or for community cats, not just for feral cats. So first, rabies is required by us and it should always be required. Recommended, again, ear tips, which in my opinion should always be required. We do recommend euthanasia of severely ill or injured cats. Now, this is a very case-by-case situation. There are some people that can, place cats in a safe environment, that have the funds to properly take care of them, and things that can be done to improve their quality of life. And in those cases, then absolutely, we recommend treatment. However, if a cat has a poor quality of life, it's not going to be able to treat it properly, or the only option is to release it back, then euthanasia needs to be considered. Broad spectrum deworming, we see quite a few cats that are presented that are covered with fleas and then they have tapeworms as a result. It's the most common thing, or that they have really profuse diarrhea. So we do recommend broad spectrum deworming in those cases. The FVRCP vaccination, which is the respiratory diseases, we do recommend that vaccination just because it does decrease the risk of respiratory infections. And even if they do not get boosted, it does have some prolonged immunity. So it is able to help control the overall health of the colony. And then treatments to improve quality of life. So dental procedures on some cats, like sometimes we'll get a community cat that has really bad teeth, that has an abscess tooth or something like that. So we recommend getting that taken care of. Skin infections, ear mites, just problems that can be taken care of. Things that we don't recommend. We do not recommend leukemia and FIV testing unless they are sick. Doing a leukemia and FIV test on feral and community cats, especially when they're going to be returned back, is a waste of resources and money. That's money that can be put into surgery, into care, into treatment for other cats. It says unless sick. So if we get one of these cats that is severely ill, that is injured, at that point, we may recommend going ahead and doing a leukemia and FIV test, because if this cat is positive and it is really sick, then it is likely that they're not going to respond properly to treatment. And at that point, euthanasia may be the best option for that individual cat. We don't recommend nail trims on feral cats. Taming ferals. So this is, I know, a kind of a hot topic because there's a lot of people that like to think about taming ferals. First, again, there's so many cats in shelters. So these feral cats, if they're in a safe environment, they're already home. So why increase the burden to shelters when we have a place for these cats to go? It denies, in my opinion, it denies the cat the freedom to express normal behavior. These cats that are outside are used to running around, they're used to playing, climbing trees, and doing all these things. By bringing them inside of a shelter, putting them in a cage, we're avoiding their normal behavior, and we are potentially increasing the risk that they're going to be more aggressive. I do recommend either taking them in or transferring them to another place if there is danger at the current location that they're at. And then finally, don't recommend transferring a cat from a trap to a cage. Even if you're gonna take this cat into your home for overnight or till the next day to watch it, to recover from surgery, still keeping them in the trap. And again, using those forks so that you can safely get food in and out of the traps. So the 5 freedoms, I kind of, my head goes around in all sorts of places. So that's kind of how my presentation is. So this 5 freedom part of it is because we all play a part in community cat care. So this is part of what the community, the caretakers are involved in the 5 freedoms for these cats, and then our part as well. So clearly the caretakers are helping these cats with freedom from hunger and thirst by providing food and water, and then also freedom from discomfort. Now I want to warn you guys that the next slide is freedom from injury, and there are some graphic images. So some of these may be a little bit disturbing, but these are the realities of what we see when we're taking care of feral colonies. So freedom from pain, injury, and disease. This is the first out of 5 cases that I want to share. And this is a very common problem that we see, especially during kitten season. So this is a kitten that was brought in as a community kitten for just TNR. And we were able to remove this infected eye. The caretaker took him home, took care of him for a few days until everything was healed up. And then this kitten was able to be released back to the environment. This kitty was an outdoor barn cat that presented for TNR. And it was nice enough to let us handle it after a little bit of sedation, but the caretaker was not able to actually hold on to it and do a close exam. So she knew that something was off with its lips, but had not been able to look at it closely. So once we were able to sedate her and get her out of the cage, we were able to see that it had this really large mass on the nose and lips, and it was extending into the mouth. Lymph nodes were enlarged. The cat was extremely skinny. So most likely our primary concern was a form of skin cancer. So this kitty was humanely euthanized. So, you know, we have to help people make difficult decisions, but this is a decision that, even though it's not an easy decision to make, the caretaker can feel good that she did something, you know, even if it was euthanasia, this cat is no longer suffering and, you know, having the problems that she was having. This is another cat. This was a cat that was trapped, and it had multiple wounds and abscesses, likely secondary from fights with other cats. So we were able to drain and flush the abscesses, gave the cat an antibiotic injection, and the caretaker was sent home with oral anti-inflammatory that could be mixed with the food. And then the cat was able to remain with the caretaker for, I want to say it was about a couple of weeks, and then released back to the colony. This kitty is a special case just because she was trapped and she was very manageable. And she had this really horrible wound in the back leg. So this is a special case just because at this time that this kitty was presented, I really wanted to do a skin graft, to work on a skin graft. And this kitty presented the perfect opportunity. So this lucky kitty got to have a skin graft put on her leg, and it took really well. And as you can see on the third picture, she actually ended up being adopted, and she had full grow of the hair on that leg. The last case that we have was a very, very feral kitty that was presented for TNR. And after we had her under anesthesia, we noticed that she had this really bad wound that had exposure of the bone. So the options at this point clearly was going to be amputation, which was not possible because it was really bad wound. Releasing her back, like just paying her and releasing her back, was not optional. And then the third option would have been euthanasia. But the caretaker wanted to give the kitty a chance. So this kitty remained hospitalized with us. And we did a series of bandages and surgeries to debride the wounds. And we were able to get this kitty under control, the infection under control. And the last picture is the day that she got spayed, and the wound was pretty much healed. So she was released back to her caretaker, who kept her for another week to 10 days, and then released her back outside. Because even after having this kitty inside for a long period of time, she was with us for about almost a month, she still was not having it with humans. So she was letting us do a little bit more things, but she was definitely going to be a much happier cat outside. So going back to the 5 freedoms, this goes back to the community. freedom from fear and distress, making sure that these cats are in a safe environment. And then finally, freedom to express normal behavior. And this is the part with the caretakers as far as, allowing these cats to remain outside doing the TNR. When we see this picture, I think most of us, even if we're not dog people, we get sad. This is a dog that has a house, it has food and water. It looks clean, but we are still sad because we see that this dog is chained and is unable to express his normal behavior. So when I see this picture, I get sad too, because this is a cat that's clearly not happy being inside, being in a cage. So this kitty may be having food, water. It doesn't have to deal with the environment or anything like that. But if it's unable to express normal behavior, it's not going to be a happy cat. So kind of wrapping things up a bit. So as I mentioned, we have been around since 2006. And what the Rascal unit does is high quality, high volume sterilization. And we sterilize between 30 and 50 patients per day. We have the occasional off day or clinic where we actually increase the number of patients, but we do the number of patients that we're able to do in a safe manner. And these patients, regardless of if they are owned or if it is a community cat, a TNR that is brought in, they're all being treated the same way. They all receive the same types of medications. They receive the same anesthesia, vaccines, everything is done the same way. So high quality is a really important thing for us. So in 2019, we sterilized a total of 7,462 cats. And of that, 10.8% of those cats were TNR. And it's at least that number. That is the way that we keep track of it is by ear tips. So that is the number of cats that were ear tipped. And in 2020, even with COVID, we still were able to sterilize 6,751 cats. The interesting part, it was that it was an even higher percentage of TNR. And I think it was because the TNR groups were in such need that they were trapping and bringing us every kitty that they could. So we're looking forward to what 2021 numbers are going to be. To give an idea as far as the cost that it takes to take care of these cats. So at our facility, a cat spay is $50 and a cat neuter is $40. And there are a few different changes as far as if the cat is pregnant or if a male kitty is what's called a cryptorchid. There are some additional charges for that. Rabies vaccination is $8 and the FERCP, the feline December vaccine, is $11. And of course, no charge for ear tips. And the reason for that is we want to encourage people to ear tip these community cats. We don't want cost to be a factor in not getting this done. So with that, that's my presentation. I want to thank you to everybody, the Ohio Community Cat Summit, the Together Initiative for Ohio's Community Cats, Ohio Animal Advocates, all of the amazing speakers that are joining us, and everybody who has taken the time to join us. A shout out to the TNR veterinarians, technicians, and support staff, because without you, we can't do this. And of course, the TNR groups and organizations, and all you trappers and transporters, just thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. G. That was a terrific presentation. Your numbers are always impressive. We had a quick question, if you could answer it quickly.
Absolutely.
They want to know if your spay procedures are OVE or OVH.
We do a full ovarian hysterectomy on all the cats.
Okay, I think that answers the question. Okay, well then we're going to get going and moving on to our next speaker. So appreciative for Dr. G. She does such tremendous work with the Rascal unit. Now it's time to move on to Tabitha Kucera, who I introduced earlier, and she's going to talk about debunking myths and resolving conflicts. In a second here, we'll get Tabitha hooked up and we'll get her ready to go. And then it'll be time for a break of about 10 minutes or so once Tabitha is finished. I see Tabitha there. How are you?
I'm muted.
Okay. All right. I'm going to get off the screen here and let you get going.
Awesome. Let me just share my screen here. everybody, welcome. Can you just yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, haha. Because I have two screens and sometimes it does this fun game. Let me just fix that. 1 second. Swap displays. Is that better? Yay! And you can hear me okay? Look, no technical difficulties, everybody. Wonderful. So I will be getting into debunking myths and resolving conflicts, because a big part of being a cat advocate or community cat advocate is doing these things. I heard Dr. G talking about some of the things I'm going to mention. It's a beautiful flow. She's wonderful. But unfortunately, there's a lot of negative stereotypes about cats, especially community cats. And when it comes to us trapping or educating people, sometimes our emotions can get the best of us, and we aren't very effective with our communication, and we actually cause people to dislike cats as well. A little bit about me: I own a cat and dog behavior consulting business, Herbs and Tatter. I'm a registered vet tech. I have been working with low-cost spay and neuter clinics, vet clinics, shelters for about 12 years. And I have the pleasure, because I do behavior, of dealing with a lot of complex and difficult situations. And I've learned over time that if we don't communicate effectively, it can cause a lot of issues, not just for humans, but for the cats we work with. So I think understanding some of the common myths that we see and being able to respond to them with educational information. There isn't as much scientific research on feral cats, which Dan's going to get into later, because I do think the more research we have, the better, because then we can get more support from governments and larger organizations like veterinary communities and things like that, which we are working on. And there is some research out there, which Dan will definitely be sharing with you later. But I'm going to just start getting into some of the common myths, which I'm sure many of you have also heard, that I most commonly hear. So a big one is, of course, we all know, right? Cat overpopulation can be fixed by removing the feral colony. Whether that means I'm going to take the cat and remove the cat, but that can also mean I'm going to catch the cat and euthanize or kill the cat. We've learned over time, thankfully, that trapping and removing cats from an area can cause a vacuum effect. And that's just a fun scientific term that refers to the maximum number of animals that the local ecosystem can support. So what happens is when an individual animal dies or is removed, the population has an opening for another individual to enter. So that's what tends to happen, which is also why we call it trap, neuter, return. Returning them to the location they are is crucial. So TNR is the only effective method of controlling the community cat population. With euthanizing, not only is it not effective, but it's really difficult to get government support and human support, because humans are compassionate, amazing people, and no one wants to see that. So it tends to be a waste of time, and it's not effective that we know now of based on science. So that's just another thing I like to recommend. Cat overpopulation cannot be fixed by removing the feral colony, because sometimes people think it's a simple fix and they just need some education, and there's a lot of great resources out there to help teach people. This is one, as a veterinary technician, I have the pleasure of going to quite a few council meetings. I try to change laws on a larger level, so I think it's really important. And if any of you have been to one of these feeding ban meetings or these meetings that your city may have, which I highly recommend looking into it to check and support. If you go to one of these meetings, there tend to be people there who aren't educated, especially have no veterinary background, and are screaming about my cat got a parasite from this feral cat. Feral cats are diseased. Like, they're very emotional and screaming. So it's interesting that they're taken so seriously. I come in very calm and collected, which is very important, even though I understand that this is a passionate topic. So something I commonly hear, again, at these meetings, and this is where I work with the council people afterwards and say, I'm a veterinary technician. I'd be happy to educate you more about disease processes and how they're transmitted. Since, of course, as council people, I don't expect them to understand that, but they may take what these people are saying as fact. And that is concerning, because if there's a human risk, guys, that's where these feeding bans and some of these not great things that are happening that aren't effective or humane can start. So it's really important for us to break that myth. So a big myth is feral cats are a severe disease risk to humans and pets. Truth is, many diseases that infect cats can only be spread from cat to cat and not from cat to human or zoonotic. That means infectious diseases are spread through direct contact also. So for example, toxoplasmosis is something that I hear a lot about, and it is a disease that you can get from cats, but the likelihood of that is extremely rare. Consumption of undercooked or raw meat is way more of a risk, yet no one talks about that at these lovely meetings. And hand washing is a really easy and preventative measure. So not only are feral cats not coming up to you to cuddle and kiss and lick and bite you, they tend to do their own thing and ignore you, versus strays, which are not feral cats. But even in those cases, they're not just running up to people and attacking them, even though that's what society would like to believe, which is why it's really important, as Dr. G said, we should be trapping these cats effectively. We shouldn't be just grabbing cats under any circumstances, because safety is key, and that's really traumatizing for the cat. So it's really important to understand that although feral cats can transmit toxoplasmosis, the chances of it is so rare that when I see in these council meetings that it's the only thing being mentioned, and then rabies and all these other things. The last case of rabies, I believe, because I looked at these stats for another, so don't quote me, but I think it was in the 1970s, and it was from a bat in Ohio. So that's something that you could easily mention at a meeting and say, actually, this is the last data received, the last rabies transmission was from a bat in 1970. So can we please stop bringing this up? Or again, you're just showing effective communication. And then again, with toxoplasmosis, cats typically shed oocysts, or basically the things that if we were to, in their feces, if we were to accidentally get their feces in our mouth, things happen, you could get toxoplasmosis. Cats only tend to shed that once in their lifetime, if at all. So again, it's a very rare thing. I'm not saying that we should be washing our hands after we clean our cat's litter boxes, of course. You should be washing your hands after you touch or deal with undercooked or raw meat. Those are just safety precautions. But a big thing I hear is that feral cats are these disease transmitting things, and it's just not the case. And these are really easy things to debunk. I'm happy to send you guys some research on this. If you do go to council meetings and would like to have that for the council people, I would be happy to share that with you, and I'll have my email address up at the end, because again, this is something I hear way more than you would think at the meetings I go to. This is the reason why they're like, we have to get rid of these feral cats. So it's a fairly easy thing to debunk. I think feral cats are diseased and live short lives. I'm sure we're amongst people that understand that that's not the case, but some people do feel that euthanizing is the only way to ease their suffering, which again, they're not coming from a malicious place. And Dr. G touched on this. If the animal is suffering, the veterinarian can discuss that with you and figure that out, because sometimes people just see cats with some missing fur, and I'll see Facebook posts and things, oh, social media, it's Demodex, it's this, and it's very obvious that they are not aware of medical disease processes, and that they're creating narratives and some dangerous stuff. Again, they're usually coming from a good place, but this is why it's really important to work with veterinary professionals to get that figured out. But most cats, I have a lot of, as we all know, I have a lot of clients who have colonies in their backyard. Again, they're well managed because they're well taken care of. It's their colony, so it's a little easier to keep track. They do health checks. And I have a lot of clients who have feral cats who have lived with them for 16 to 18 years. So of course, if we do feel the cat is suffering, we should bring them in for a medical checkup with, like Dr. G, if they're significantly limping, because obviously I understand if they have a watery eye, we can't just take them to the vet. But if we're seeing some of these extreme things, instead of creating these narratives, let's get them looked at. And if it is the most humane thing to euthanize them, that's appropriate. But just living outside is definitely not a bad thing. But a lot of people, they need to hear that. And because they're like, but the cat is suffering. Even cat lovers sometimes can't understand TNR, or the fact that the cat lives outside and they want to bring them in. So this is where you meet them where they're at, understand they're coming from a good place, and educate them that actually feral cats can live really happy lives. These are some examples. This is how they live those happy lives, but just to help address that. Obviously, this is something I hear a lot as well. I will take the feral cats to a local animal shelter or to a no-kill animal shelter to be adopted. No-kill shelters are a whole nother topic I won't get into today. But as far we know, like we've all been saying, adult feral cats are the most likely to be euthanized than any other dog or cat. There's actual stats on this because it's been such an issue that Best Friends and some other organizations are collecting research on this. So a lot of people will take this cat into the shelter and feel good about it. And again, I think they're coming from a good place, but feral cats are unsocialized and can't be adopted out as someone's companion. And they're very uncomfortable in a shelter setting. So from a behavioral and mental, physical standpoint, they're going through severe stress and it's inhumane to have them there. I love Dr. G's picture of the dog and then the cat because I think the same thing, but sometimes we have to help people understand that. And a lot of the times my clients will say, I found a cat, Tabitha, I saw you for a behavior consult a year ago, what should I do? And I just help them understand that let's assess if I do consults to assess if it's a feral cat or a stray cat, because that's another thing that gets miscommunicated quite often. So this is where TNR groups can help. You could work with behavior consultants as myself, and we can work together to assess, is the cat feral or is the cat not feral, and then come up with an appropriate plan. Because too often do I see a terrified cat in a trap and people are using these labels like feral when actually the cat is not feral. So that is something that I would love to see more people doing. Let's focus on assessing, is the cat feral? Is the cat not feral? And then coming up with a plan appropriately. But it's not as simple as, I see a cat, I'm going to take it away and bring it to the shelter, because shelters don't have the resources to socialize a feral cat. And again, that's not necessarily a thing that's very common, truly. So those cats will most likely get euthanized, which no one likes. The shelter doesn't like it. We shouldn't be putting them in situations where they have to do that. And we should be doing our due diligence to assess properly, which I think is the biggest takeaway from this. Feeding bans are effective in decreasing stray and community cats. Again, I even see cat lovers say, I'm not going to leave food out because of this. And I've been to quite a few council meetings because one person complained about a feral cat who didn't understand them. And that's another thing. At these community council meetings, I can communicate to that person who's stressed out on a separate note, like after the meeting, because I am below threshold and I can convey some difficult conversations and I can try to understand their concerns and help them. Because usually it's 1 to 3 people, guys, complaining about mess at a TNR, like at a colony site, or it's somewhat like one cat on their car. Like one neighbor can cause a feeding ban in your city. It's kind of crazy, but it's been at a lot of the ones I've been to. So feeding bans aren't effective. We all know this. The cats don't just leave, right? So cats are territorial and they bound to their surroundings. They're not going to just be like, I've been here forever. I've had resources. I'm not going to just leave. Cats are scavengers. And as they grow, if their food source is taken away, now we might actually see the cats occasionally because they might be, again, they need food, right? So they're looking, they might be on the now or in your garbage. So actually feeding them on a daily basis, if you're a colony caregiver, bless you, that helps to prevent the cats from basically the community seeing them, which is a win-win. Feeding bans are nearly impossible to reinforce or to enforce. Cops don't have the time to sit around and see, oh, this person's feeding at 5 o'clock. More than 40% of Americans have opened their hearts and wallets to caring about feral cats. So these people aren't going to just stop caring about them. We shouldn't be punishing them. We should be assisting them. And again, they're basically impossible to enforce. So the fact that they're brought up so often at city meetings is really interesting. But this is something that you can do in your own community, because I'm sure there's not just people here from Ohio, and you can really make a difference on your own by just helping kindly communicate that these aren't effective, and then sharing some data, and then providing solutions, like which I'll get into later. So Dr. G talked about this, but this is another thing I hear a lot of. So I just like to touch base. Ear tipping is cruel. It is not when it's done appropriately, like Dr. G mentioned, it's done under anesthesia. While they're under anesthesia, we place a clamp to stop the blood flow to the ear, and then it is snipped, and then it is taken care of while the animal's under anesthesia and not painful. It obviously helps to easily identify a cat at a distance. It helps local officials. So I've worked with some cities who were proposing feeding bans and things like that. And I said, these aren't effective. Here's an effective thing. Here's a solution. And I would say, let's keep track of colonies. We will make sure they're TNR'd. This way we are building up the community, we're supporting the community, and we're getting less cats. Because we all know if you love cats or hate cats, TNR reduces cats. So it's a win-win for everybody. Not that I can understand disliking cats, but maybe they have a negative learning history. I don't know, I don't judge. So it helps local officials. It decreases the chance of going through the stressful TNR process. As a fear-free and low stress handling vet tech, I do everything in my power to decrease stress. Even when it comes to trapping, there are things you could do to make it less stressful, but it is a stressful ordeal. And I don't want to put a cat through that any more than we have to. And then of course, it's the best option, right? We've examined different things over the years. A tattoo is great, but are you guys going to be catching these feral cats and shaving their bellies and finding their tattoo? No, that's crazy. A microchip, again, you have to catch the cat and scan the cat, or scan the cat at a close distance. Again, very unrealistic, have to be very close. And then the other option, a collar, can easily fall off or break, or even worse, it can get stuck on something. So this is something I hear a lot, and you could easily say, you could just discuss the microchip, tattoo, and collar aren't appropriate, and this is why. And it's like a 1-minute conversation. You're being helpful, you're being kind, and you're helping to break that stigma about ear tipping. So thanks for the tip, right? I love this picture, it's adorable. And then this is one that's close to my heart, because as a behavior consultant and a veterinary technician, I actually help shelters and other organizations develop kitten kindergarten programs and socialization programs for fearful cats. And I hear a lot that anyone can socialize a feral cat with a lot of time and patience. That is just not true. And I see a lot of people, again, first things first, let's assess, is the cat feral or is the cat a stray? Because I think that that's not done appropriately. And a lot of people are just throwing labels around. The cat's scared, he's fractious, he's feral. No, you just scruffed a cat, kind of traditionally restrained them, which I'm not a huge fan of, threw them in a new place. It's really uncomfortable, it's loud, it's scary. They're acting appropriately. So again, that's where it's really important to learn body language if you're working with cats a lot, and assess appropriately, because I do see cats get assessed inappropriately. And then someone's like, I socialized a feral cat. And I was like, I appreciate what you're saying, but it's very unlikely that it was a feral cat. And those people that say they socialize feral cats, I see them as a behavior consultant 3 months later at the new home, and they're living in a wall or in the basement and they never leave. And I understand that you might think shelter and food is enough. But as a person that really understands the psychological well-being of cats, it's inhumane. I think behavior and medical health are the same thing. And if a cat is so distressed and stressed out that they live in a basement and never come out, that's a problem. That's a really big problem. And I have a problem with it. And I think it's really inhumane. So that's where I have to work with the caregivers, because some people don't know what a feral cat is. And they don't even know they exist. I've had a lot of clients who they felt horrible, bless them. They met really well. They bring a cat in out of the cold, which I appreciate. And then they're like, Tabitha, help me, there's a cat in my ceiling. And they didn't know what a community cat was or what a feral cat was. So at that point, we work together to get the cat safely trapped and then to assess the cat and possibly work on socialization at that point, or getting the cat to a point where they could be comfortable back outside. So but again, I'm a behavior professional. It's a lot. It's not just time and patience. It's not like I put them in a bathroom and brush them with a brush, because that's something I commonly see. Because what happens is I understand that you can brush the cat, just like if you're a feeder and you can pet the cat, one time, because that cat has a learning history of you feeding them every day at the same time, which is a predictable positive human interaction, which is great, that is not going to generalize to other environments and other people. So someone might be like, again, you're working at the shelter and bless this person. They're like, I feed this cat. I've been feeding it for 2 years. So we know there's a long learning history there. So there's probably some positive associations. The cats might let them pet them once. And the person might misinterpret that as the cat's adoptable. So as a shelter employee or a behavior consultant or a vet tech, that's where you get more information and educate them that that's so wonderful that you've built up that bond with that cat. That's a huge step, but that does not make them adoptable. This is why, and explain that process. Because again, I see so many people, especially with feral kittens, which can be socialized easier because they're in that key socialization period. And I do recommend a lot of behavior modification, clicker training. So it's not just time and patience. It's a lot more than that. You need to understand how cats learn, because what happens is you take the kitten in, you bring them in your bathroom. And again, you're coming from a good place, but I just need people to understand. I see that cat 3 months later and they live in a basement and they never leave, or they live in a closet and they never leave. That is not a good quality of life, right? So that's where I've worked with a lot of people to help those cats be more comfortable. I do have some clients who've had feral colonies for quite a long time. And the cat, for example, I have a client who had a cat until he was about 15. And she noticed that he was having some vision issues, and she took him in and got that taken care of. And she wasn't comfortable with putting him back out. But did she just bring him in? No, she contacted me. We came up with a plan. We did a behavior modification plan. We thought about her animals in the house. And this case, this cat is now living happily in the home with this client. But there was a lot of work that went into that, like a lot of work. And this bless this client, she was retired. She was crazy compliant, went above and beyond and listened to everything I said. So I understand there are circumstances where we may bring them in, but it's not as simple as bringing them in. We need to plan ahead. So I know I went on a bit of a soapbox there as a behavior consultant, but I think it's really important to understand. I know we want all what's best for the cats, but again, let's assess if they're truly feral or not. And then let's come up with a plan. They're happy living outside. If they are, that's great. Let's help that client provide shelter and feeding and teach them about colony care, right? Instead of being like, let me take your cat to a shelter, which we all know, unfortunately, is not super effective. And then finally, we're going to talk about how we could be a advocate and prevent and resolve conflicts. Because again, I know this is stuff we don't like doing. I always joke I'm a unicorn. I love kids. I love animals. I love adults. But I've learned over time, especially with behavior, if you don't communicate effectively and just shut someone down, which sometimes I see us doing, and again, it's because we're so passionate and emotional. But if I disagree with you and you come at me and you're negative, now I might say all cats suck, right? And I know that's a lot of pressure, but we need to do our best to be kind. So there's a lot of things we can do to prevent and resolve conflicts. One of the first things is we want to have a conversation. So we want to reduce personalization. So for example, I have no bumper stickers on my car. For a reason, because like political bumper stickers and things like that, because I don't want to create a negative association as soon as I drive into their car or in their parking lot or their driveway, right? Obviously I have tattoos and I have colored hair, but I'm super friendly. If they're going to judge me on that, that's their own thing. I'm not going to worry about that, but I'm not going to come in wearing like a kill all breeder shirt. Or again, I've seen some pretty negative shirts. You have to realize if you're going in with that's those stickers on your thing or that shirt, you're already kind of coming in pretty negative and judgmental, and you're not really going to be able to communicate effectively. So if you're someone that TNRs a lot, goes to strangers' houses, I would recommend not having a bunch of like specific stickers on your car, even though I have very strong values and morals, but that's not the most effective place, right? The biggest thing is we want to remain calm. This takes time. Like as somebody that does a lot of conflict reducing stuff, sometimes I'll have a neighbor contact me, and I understand if you're the neighbor that lives next door, it's very personal and you might be in a place where you cannot communicate. appropriately because you're over threshold, because you live with these people, you can't believe they're doing that. I understand that. That is okay. So that's where I come in as an unbiased person who doesn't have a relationship with either side and just come in to help. Sometimes you need to call in a person to help. I've worked with a lot of TNR groups and I've been that person, because it's also okay if it is your neighbor and it's too personal and you rather have someone else, like a mediator, involved. That's actually the best thing. Because if you go over there, if you're like, feral cats are awesome, TNR is great. TNR is great. It makes less cats. Don't you understand that? So that's not effective communication. You don't realize your body language might be negative. You might be like, again, involuntary stuff, right? Let's shift from reactive to proactive. Instead of saying, how dare you want to kill this cat, right? What is your concern about the cat? So we're, like I did with that city, I'm going to provide them facts and then offer them positive solutions and help them with those. So for example, I've been to quite a few houses where neighbors are complaining about cats and they were upset that there was feces everywhere. And I come in there and I say, I understand your frustration. I empathize with them. I identify the problems. I offer solutions. I'm kind. I unlearn those long-held truths. So those myths we talked about, I help to address some of those. And I'm like, actually, literally every house I've been to for this, it wasn't cat feces at every single one. None of the homes I've been to, which have been quite a few for this complaint, none of them have been cat feces. They were other species feces. And I help them with that too, because I don't want them harming other animals or calling one of these like rodent, get rid of what, I don't even remember what they're called, but you guys know what I mean. So I still help them figure out ways or find someone, because I don't know everything, because it's a team effort, find someone that can help them deal with their geese problem, because I also don't want them to harm those animals. So I think it's really important to identify the problem, speak their language. And what I mean by that is, if I'm speaking to another vet tech, I might use medical jargon and situations like that. If I'm speaking to someone that is not in the medical field with animals, I'm not going to use that medical jargon. So it's really important to speak their language. If they seem really upset, you're going to breathe and be calm and say, I understand how frustrating that might be. What's your main concern? Oh, the cat jumps on your car. And that's where behavior mod comes in, because I could easily make that cat, help that cat. Let's focus on what behavior we don't want. We don't want that cat to jump on your car. And then we come up with a plan. And that helps. If we could get in there sooner than later, that's the better as well. This finger pointing, judging, shaming is not effective. Screaming like TNR, you're a horrible person. I know it might feel good for you. It's reinforcing for you as a human. We're all human, guys. But it's not effective. Shaming is not effective under any circumstances, with whether we're talking about decline, because I see a lot of shaming happening with that, and then I have to undo it all. I am not a fan of decline and I help educate people, but that's something where I see people shame a lot, and now I have to go and undo things, and it's a lot harder because they have such negative associations with people who talk about decline or not decline, for example. And then last but not least, humankind, be both. I love this. I should get it as a tattoo. It's really important to focus on productive techniques. So for example, let's say someone's talking to you and telling you their concerns and you're just not responding. You might just be doing this. You might just say, yeah, the cat's supposed to do that. Trust me, I see a lot of cats who are like, your cat should be house soiling and missing the box, because this setup is not, you set your cat up not to succeed. But I don't say that. That is not appropriate or effective, because that person probably doesn't know. So no response and negative responses is usually what happens. Those help to create resentment. So I was kind of saying, like, now not only do they not like that feral cat, now they hate all cats and they hate cat lovers. We're creating this resentment and low morale. Why waste time on ineffective responses? So instead, we should redirect. This is true positive reinforcement with humans and animals, right? So we should describe the problem, figure out what it is. We're not going to blame them. We're not going to say, you don't leave food out, so that's why these cats are here, because that's not productive. We're going to take like, for example, sometimes I will make it about me. Like for the city that I helped with, I talked to the mayor and I basically made him think it was his idea. That was fine with me. I don't care. Either way, the cats win. And if it can help him succeed, if that's his motivation and he wants to look good in the media, I will let you say you made this. That is fine. So again, it's really important to realize who you're working with, understand what's reinforcing, clearly explain the task. So for example, some people might say, TNR the cat, here's a handout on how to TNR. Guys, that's really overwhelming and ineffective in most cases. And there's so many videos and resources, because realistically, my goal isn't to TNR every cat. My goal is to teach other people about what community cats and feral cats are and how to TNR and how to communicate effectively, because we can't TNR every cat. But could we teach everyone about this? And then they can TNR 5 cats, you can TNR 20 cats. That's a really important thing. And express continuing confidence and trust in the person. I've seen some horrible things in my field, but I truly believe that people do have the best of intentions. Very few people are malicious. They might be dealing with other things in their life that are hard and are taking it out on this. And we need to understand that we need to help and support them. So that is some helpful tips about how to be a good catvocate. Here is my email address and my social medias. I also have a podcast called Not Just a Vet Tech. So thank you guys so much for being here with us.
Thanks, Tabitha. That was great as always. Appreciate it very much.
You're so sweet.
We're going to take about a 10-minute break now. So we'll be back at 2:30. We've got 3 presentations to go, and then the Q&A. I see a couple of questions have come in. We'll try to address those during the Q&A. So hope you stick with us. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. Got about a minute here. We'll be done with our break. And we'll start up once again. Hope everybody's enjoying Summit so far. We had three fabulous speakers. I want to thank all of them again for presenting today. Well, it's 2:30 now, at least on my clock. So we're going to come back with a presentation by Vicki Deisner, again, of Ohio Animal Advocates on constructing robust municipal partnerships. So if you're ready, Vicki.
Thank you so much, Dan, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us. And I know you're all looking forward to our keynote speaker, Sterling Davis. What I'm going to do now is build on Tabitha's excellent presentation on debunking myths and resolving conflicts, and discuss how to build robust partnerships with local leaders so they pass the type of not only ordinances, but provide support potentially that they have the power to pass the local legislation we want. So we need to develop diplomatic relations to work with them. Now, I point that out, and I'll give you a little bit about my background. I am an attorney, a former Ohio Assistant Attorney General. I was the executive director of Ohio Environmental Council, the associate director of Water Resources for National Wildlife Federation in Washington, D.C. I was the Midwest Legislative Director for ASPCA, and I'm currently the Government Affairs Representative in Ohio for Animal Welfare Institute and executive director of Ohio Animal Advocates. Now, why do I tell you that? The reason I'm sharing that is I've spent literally the last 25 years working on federal, state, and national legislation. And what I can tell you from that whole experience is it absolutely, you attract more flies with honey, that we need to do what we can to really convince and to sell to municipal leaders why we need TNR and why we need to look at community cat ordinances and other solutions to dealing with what they perceive as a cat problem, but as Tabitha pointed out, it's really an opportunity to look at all of our humane sides and do something very kind for another species out there. On that note, let's get going. Looking at that, you know, obviously we all know about the dilemma for community cats. Traditionally, too many communities managed feral cats by trapping and killing and passing ordinances banning free roaming cats, banning feeding them. This has been a flawed kill strategy. It does not reduce cat populations, as we know. And even more important, it does not involve community in the solution and helping. Now, data shows success of TNR in reducing cat populations, which Dan is going to show us how to use that so well coming up after me. He's, you know, Dan, the data man. But we need to think about using that data and other opportunities we have to provide information to educate and partner with municipal leaders. Now, why local leaders should care about community cats? Why? Because Ohioans love cats. The AVMA estimates that cats reside in 25% of US households. Ohio exceeds the national average, with cats residing in 31% of all households. And Ohio public opinion demands it. Researchers at OSU found that 26% of surveyed households in Ohio reported feeding outdoor cats. And this is significantly, this rate outpaces the national average of 14%. So in Ohio, when it looks like we're okay with community cats and we're okay with feeding them. Now, how does that reflect to any national survey information? A survey conducted by Harris Interactive revealed that 81% of respondents agreed, let's leave a stray cat outside to live out its life. And that's more humane than having the cat caught and killed. Another study by Wald, 83% of survey residents, including not only TNR participants, but surprisingly, National Audubon members, goes to the issue of the birds, and the public preferred non-lethal management. Another report, Hurley, reported that 75% of Americans believe that only sick and dangerous animals should be euthanized in shelters. And a study by Best Friends preferred TNR to trap, euthanization, or non-management by 70% of respondents, a 2014 survey. So the important thing about this are these are statistics that speak volumes about what is important to those local leaders' constituents. So what we want to do is provide that information to them as a tool for them to, you might say, argue the case with, anybody who's doubting them, either on council or throughout the community, but that, this is what the majority of a community feels. And so you add that all up and you're seeing over 80% want to leave the cat where it is. 14% may say put the cat down, 5% don't know. The overall public opinion is let's leave the cats alone. Now, what happens though if those local leaders still aren't on board and we just want to get rid of the cats? Well, those leaders that are not convinced that a community cat program is right for them, we need to look at some other facts then. I mean, we want to point out that the long-term solution is to reduce the nuisance complaints, and we go back to the issue of TNR and the vacuum situation as to why long-term TNR is the answer. But let's bring up something that local leaders tend to care about: cost considerations. The AVMA article estimated cost to local government was $16 billion to trap and kill versus $7 billion for TNR. So what that means is during, if there is trap kill efforts, cat advocates, the community, is not going to get involved. And so the government actually ends up bearing the entire cost of a lethal management. Enlisting volunteers in TNR empowers the community to help, and it does help the cats, and it does reduce nuisance. And so overall, AVMA concludes that TNR most cost-effective way to reduce cat populations is basically by TNR and other efforts. So developing robust partnerships with municipalities is, number one, we're providing them with data about what their constituents feel, and then solutions to municipalities that have to do with TNR, involving the community, reducing the cost of, solving the nuisance problem by a collective, collaborative effort. And it's a win-win for the cats. It's really a win-win for the community. Now, solutions can include approval of TNR practices, and oftentimes, you see, especially in smaller communities, that is what the community cat ordinance might be. In other places, we need to look at repeal of feral cat bans and killing ordinances. But there's been over the last 2 decades kind of an effort to look maybe in a bigger way at the passage of community cat ordinances that involve more. Those range of community cat ordinances can be, as I mentioned, at a minimum, TNR, but at the most, it can be a community cat ordinance that creates collaborative programs between government and the private sector that reduce cat overpopulation, minimize nuisances that are on a bigger level, and save lives. They can include the government, the private shelters, humane enforcement, county shelters, TNR groups, and individuals that set up to become community cat managers. Step up. I want to point out that a lot of this discussion in the Midwest started with a huge legislation, groundbreaking, passed by Cook County, Illinois, back in '07. And it's become a model for across the nation. And in fact, actually, it was the Department of Health in Cook County that worked very hard to pass this. And the government became and stayed involved entirely in not only, overseeing and assuring that all the pieces were in place, but also making sure resources were there to make this really work and go forward. So it does provide, this Cook County ordinance does provide for legal TNR. Cat colony caretakers do the trapping. They take the animals for spay, neuter, and vaccination and ear tip. And, and actually it provides an opportunity for them to get the word out, as well as government, maybe faster than government would, about what opportunities there are to deal with this in their community. Yes, the ordinance was challenged in court by the city of Bridgeway. This was one of the first to come up, but it was upheld by the city and state because it really was the city who pushed this effort. Progress in Cook County, when we look at like 6 years later, because that's kind of a definitive timeline, there were more than 1,000 registered colonies, 41% reduction in feral cat population, over 18,000 cats sterilized, and over 50% of those cats were female. Now, that shows some pretty great statistics for a time frame in a very large populated county in Illinois. Nonprofits do provide 100% of the colony management, and they do really deal with training in their ordinance and reporting in of the colony cat managers, and they make services and information widely available to the public, again through the nonprofits as well as through the government. And what has happened in Cook County is trap and kill is no longer practiced. When you look at what the components of the community cat ordinance could be, looking at Cook County and some other municipalities, you want to make sure you define the roles for government and private partners and sponsors in a shared document that everybody is in agreement with and is out there on a website. You want to define the definitions of sponsors, caretakers, colony, free roaming cat, owned cat, an owner, stray, abandoned, ear tipping, and TNR. You want to outline the education training required for sponsors of community cat colonies and the procedures to be followed by them, and also wouldn't hurt to put in the resources available. You want to identify reporting systems and deadlines, identify reporting of nuisances and hierarchy for handling nuisances. And one of the most important things is establish in that document the anonymity of caretaker and colony location, so it cannot be FOIA'd. And then identify how records are maintained. What I would like to share with you, and I would point out that this is also on Ohio Animal Advocates Community Cat web page. Under information resources, we have listed Midwest community cat ordinances, and these have been around for a while. Cook County, Illinois, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Hanover Park, Illinois, Indianapolis, Louisville, Kentucky, and Mentor and Sebring, Ohio. Actually, Sebring is one that Allied Cats helped with. I also want to point out that actually and give high fives to the interns that Ohio Animal Advocates has, because both Carly and Andrea worked the last couple days to pursue more what are recent on the books in Ohio, and they literally looked at every township. And one of the handouts you have in the email you got yesterday includes about 30 more Ohio community cat ordinances. Now, unfortunately, we still have on the books in Ohio 2 feral cat bans. Sylvania is one of the oldest ones. Garfield Heights is one of the ones that you might say has actually has brought attention to the subject, and unfortunately attention to Ohio in a negative way. It has on there in chapter 505.23 that no person shall provide food for cats or dogs other than those owned by that person by setting such food out on the exterior portion of the person's home or residence. And then whoever violates this section is guilty of a minor misdemeanor. Now in Garfield Heights, they also have under chapter 505.26 that no one in the community can own more than 3 cats in their house. Any single family dwelling or any separate suit in a 2-family dwelling. So they've gotten kind of tough on that, and whoever violates that is also guilty of a misdemeanor of the 4th degree and a misdemeanor of the 1st degree for any subsequent violations. Well, in the summer of 2019, an elderly Garfield Heights woman was found guilty of a minor misdemeanor and contempt of court and sentenced to 10 days of jail. And I know all the folks in Northeast Ohio know about this. And it really took a lot of, you might say, bad press to make this go away. The sentence was suspended. Actually, there was a national outcry. And it actually just goes to show how press can be our friends used appropriately. I also would like to talk about a municipal partnership, kind of an unlikely one that's come up in Ohio in the last few years before I get into resources. And what that is actually, and I'd like to bring Dr. Joanne Reen on. She is the director of Licking County TNR, and she's also an Ohio Animal Advocates board member. And basically what had come up was she does a lot of work in Licking County with trailer parks, and she's had a lot of success in building relationships, but there was a number of folks in trailer park management that came to the table and actually said, oh, well, you know, we have to get rid of them because it's a violation of state law, according to the Ohio Department of Commerce. So we reached out to the Ohio Department of Commerce, myself and Michelle Lanham, she is one of our board members also, and spoke to the legal department in Commerce, and there is no such requirement. It really falls back to the, you might say, any regulations and restrictions that a trailer park puts in place. But they can't fall back on the Department of Commerce to say we can't have community cats because of them. In fact, from many discussions, the Department of Commerce decided that they would like to become partners in dealing with these issues, and they reach out to us when there's problems in trailer parks across the state. So we have been lucky enough to work with Licking County TNR. We've been lucky enough to work with Together Initiative and Humane Ohio and some other groups regarding addressing these issues. A lot of times we are seeing across the state trailer parks that unfortunately are in areas where there is no TNR. So it just goes to show that we need to keep increasing that resource that we have in the state for our communities. But what I would like to do is go ahead and Dr. Reen, would you jump in and kind of talk about your experiences in Licking County and the success you have had with some of the management of trailer parks?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. So much important and great information. And if you've been in TNR very long, you have been in trailer parks. I mean, there's just no way getting around that. And trailer parks are really a mixed bag. You know, sometimes you'll find management that's very supportive, and other times you have a hard time even chasing down management. I have found that the majority of our contact with trailer park management is initiated by residents of the trailer park. So even when there are bans on feeding, as we've talked about earlier, people are still feeding the cats, and they are still, oh, hello. They are still, that was a community kitten that is looking for help. They are still feeding the cats, and the cats are still present. And what I find is that if you can get in contact with the management and speak with them to their concerns, that you often can get them to come around and be interested in working. I think the biggest barriers to management, I think the first barrier to any TNR project when you're talking with people who are not cat advocates and not interested in dealing with the problem, is that they just they don't see any solution to the problem. And so they just feel buried, and they don't think there's anything that they can do about it. And so when somebody comes in and acknowledges their concerns and says, hey, I can't make any of these completely go away, but I can make them way better for you, they start listening. And then when you also take the fact that they don't have to do all the work, whether you're either going to bring a team in or train residents of the trailer park to participate, that takes another load off their shoulders. And then if you can provide funding, I mean, we always encourage trailer park management to participate financially. And most of the time they do somewhat, at least by the time you get to the end. But if you can take the financial burden away, they start seeing this as win-win for them, and they come around. I do get a number of people who are concerned about the risk of losing their license, and Vicki has already addressed that. And we have, Ohio Animal Advocates has been an incredible resource to be that contact with the government entities to make those connections in order to get that information. And when you start talking with trailer park managers and you start saying, well, hey, don't take just my word for it, reach out to this person, email Mo, and she will give you the word from the horse's mouth, so to speak. you allow them to have their concerns and their resistance. And my experience is that you just slowly chip away by trying to not discount their concerns, but rather say, how can we address that? And how can we remove those barriers so we can work in your trailer park?
Thank you so much. And I've seen Joanna in action, and she has such a way of compassionately and passionately telling her story that she does, bring people on board very easily. I want to point out a big resource that we wanted to provide to all of you today. Ohio Animal Advocates and Together Initiative came together, and actually based on a template that was put together in Indiana by Pet Friendly Services, Sherry Storms, we were able to put together Community Cats, a guide for busy Ohio municipal leaders. And what that does, and it's one of the handouts that you got yesterday, it provides for you how to deal with your local leaders, the important things to explain, how to sell to them, how to move forward with TNR and community cat ordinances, why TNR is effective, why it reduces cat populations and nuisance issues, why constituents favor TNR, and why TNR is most cost effective. And actually, you're welcome to print these off and give to municipal leaders. I think it can really open the doors in helping to open their eyes in regard to, okay, I can work with this group. They're giving me a resource. Let's move forward. And that's always important, as you folks know. Sorry, it looks like there we go. Okay, there we go. No, this is not the right. Sorry, all of a sudden I'm in the wrong PowerPoint. There we go. Okay. In addition to that resource, I want to point out that United Spay Alliance, I don't know how many of you know about them, but they are a national organization with state partners that concentrates on the issue of let's get animals fixed, whether they're in communities, cat colonies, in homes. Let's control pet population and outdoor animal population. And they have a state partner in each state, and they are pushing a campaign now, Feline Fixed by 5 months, to save lives. And indeed, if you go to their website, you can look up this campaign. I also want to point out the Community Cats podcast. If any of you aren't familiar with that, I know Dan says he loves it. And we often will post things from them on when the next TNR certificate training is coming up, anything that's useful for, folks out there helping their colonies. And lastly, I just want to say, obviously, this is not a community cat, but it's in a backyard on a fence. And it's a good way to, he's kind of looking back and saying, I'm out of here. But, it's wrapping up the idea that, we can, live not only with feral cats, but with wildlife. And I would like to share 2 actually successes that are kind of based on the opportunity, both for working with government and also just a wonderful resource for us. The Humane Society of Greater Dayton just had a ribbon cutting for a new addition to their campus. And it's a high volume spay neuter clinic that is designed, they want to ramp up to 20,000 surgeries per year. And they're really looking to offer this not only to Montgomery County, but to the surrounding counties. So that will be a big plus for Southwest Ohio. And then as an ending story regarding how to, make it happen with your local leaders, a wonderful high-five to Medina, because advocates there worked with Medina County City Council. And indeed, the Finance Committee has put through a proposal to allow the city to give $10,000 to the Medina County SPCA so that Medina Meow Fix can run a trap, neuter, release program to help control the feral population in the city of Medina. And actually, we will put out on the post email that you get, actually the wonderful news release about Constable Bill Lamb's reasons for advocating for this legislation. So, I mean, obviously, if we work with our government officials, we might actually even get better outcomes than we would hope to have otherwise, and really get partners in this effort. So Dan, I will turn this back over to you.
Right, thanks, Vicki. That was great. Thank you very much. And thanks to Dr. Reen as well. I'm going to go in here. And presentation mode. Me. Why it's not going into presentation mode. Liz, do you think you can bring up my presentation? Maybe that would just be easier. My computer seems to be getting a little funky. Okay, terrific. I appreciate that very much. My presentation piggybacks very well on Vicki's and on Tabitha's. I'm going to talk about making an evidence-based case for TNR. Hopefully you'll be able to pull a few nuggets out of this that you can use in making your case before either city leaders or other decision makers or other stakeholders. Remember, as Tabitha said, not everybody is a cat lover. We all are, I'm sure, but not everybody is going to buy into worrying about the welfare of the cats or concern for affection for cats or cats, and therefore they should be handled in one way or another. So making an evidence-based case in the long run will serve you well. So let's move on to our next slide. When it comes time to determine what we're going to do about community cats on a large scale, and usually that's after some kind of a complaint has been made, like Vicki talked about in Garfield Heights or wherever it might be. A determination has to be made, or is that going to be a lethal approach, or is that going to be a non-lethal approach? For a century or more, the lethal approach has been the default way of dealing with community cats. Often called feral cats or wild cats, prior to that. What that involves is normally a one-way trip to a shelter for euthanasia. So the cats are trapped and then euthanized, and thinking that just pulling them out of the area will eliminate the issue. Or a feeding ban is put in place and not even caring what happens to the cat after their food has been removed, thinking that they're going to leave, like Tabitha mentioned, which we know is not the case. And the alternative to that, of course, is non-lethal management or trap, neuter, return, which is what we're going to talk about here now. So we can go to the next slide. So let's look at lethal control. We've heard before today that it hasn't worked. It hasn't. No documented examples of sustained success in open environments exist. Now, what's an open environment? That's any place where cats can move about freely and they can come and go. That's where we live. Those are urban, suburban, rural settings where people live, and that's where the cats are. Almost all cats are in places where people live. So in those settings, there are no documented examples where sustained success has been achieved through lethal measures. When those who support lethal measures talk about success, they're usually talking about enclosed environments. There's been a number of cases where on sparsely inhabited or uninhabited oceanic islands, which of course are closed environments, what they might want to call success has been achieved. There's two notable examples. One is on Marion Island, which is part of South Africa. It's in the sub-Antarctic, where it took nearly 20 years, 19 years, to remove between 2,200 and 3,000 cats that had been introduced previously to the island. And that was done via horrific methods: hunting, which means shooting, trapping, poisoning, and introduction of disease. A second notable example was on Macquarie Island, which is off of Australia, where 761 cats were eradicated over a much shorter period of time, 5 years, but at great expense. They were eliminated in 2000, but at today's cost, that would be over $4 million, which boils down to about $5,300 per cat. So 19 years using horrific methods or $5,300 per cat really is not practical and is not something that could be implemented in these urban, suburban, and rural settings where we all live. Not to mention as well that there were unintended consequences in both places, on Marion Island and Macquarie. On Marion Island, the population of mice exploded after the cats were eliminated, and on Macquarie Island, the population of rabbits exploded. Both of those hindered the success stories in terms of the bird populations there, which they were looking to protect originally. We can go to the next slide. A couple of these surveys were mentioned already by Vicki, but it's worth mentioning again that the public tends to agree that humane methods of management are the way to go. And today we can see here that about 3/4 of the people agree. And today, how often do 3/4 of the public agree on anything? But they do seem to agree that humane methods are preferable. 77% of Ohio respondents thought that TNR was a good way to manage free roaming cats. 75% of Americans in general believe that only sick or dangerous animals should be euthanized as opposed to healthy community cats. And 68% of respondents to a national survey believe that TNR is preferable to trap and kill or no management strategies. We can go to the next slide. So what are the benefits of TNR? We've talked about this a bit earlier today, but let's just quickly review. There are fewer community cats over time, which is going to be the focus of the remainder of my presentation. It reduces nuisance behaviors that are most often associated with mating, fighting, spraying, yowling, etc. It improves feline welfare. So as Tabitha talked about, the cats are fixed, fed, and vaccinated, therefore they're in better health. There are fewer public health concerns because the cats are vaccinated for rabies. This is a best practice wherever rabies are a concern. There's reduced predation on wildlife because the cats aren't hunting for food and their overall numbers are in decline. What might be very important to your government officials is that it eliminates the perpetual spending of limited public funds on trap and euthanize campaigns or on enforcement of feeding bans. And there's a reduction in preventable deaths of healthy cats. And we'll come back to that concept of preventable deaths in a moment. We can go to the next slide. So we're going to take a look at some recent research that will help provide evidence for you, objective evidence that TNR is the most effective and humane approach. We can go to the next slide. First, we're going to look at a study that involved stochastic simulation modeling. This was performed by a collaboration of experts in cat welfare, wildlife conservation, and veterinary medicine led by John Boone. They use sophisticated modeling software to simulate the impacts and associated costs of 7 different outdoor cat management strategies. First, there was no action, so if you just left things the way they were. Then there was high and low levels of removal, which most often would be for euthanasia, but not necessarily. It could be relocation or adoption. Episodic culling, which again, this would be the default method that's been most often used by municipalities for the last century. That would involve animal control coming in, doing some trapping, maybe of 25% of the cats that are there, maybe up to half of the cats that are there, leaving, thinking they have resolved the problem. A year or two goes by, complaints again about the cats. They come back again to do the same thing, but by that time the population is rebounded. So that's episodic culling. And then TNR is the last method they looked at. And they looked at low level at 25% sterilization rate and a high level at a 75% sterilization rate. So what did they conclude? With sufficient intensity, TNR offers significant advantages in minimizing preventable deaths, there's that concept again, while also substantially reducing population size. And that's the outcome that everybody wants. The authors of this study define preventable deaths as deaths of kittens prior to reaching adulthood or deaths by lethal management. So in other words, deaths that could be avoided by alternative management methods. And why are deaths before kittens reaching adulthood an issue? Because the mortality rate for unmanaged colonies is as high as 75% for kittens. So what were the results? High intensity TNR resulted in the fewest preventable deaths, up to 30 times fewer than taking no action. So instituting high intensity TNR that was at that 75% sterilization rate resulted in 30 times fewer preventable deaths than doing nothing. And episodic culling is likely to be ineffective and inefficient in terms of cumulative preventable deaths and population size reduction. So the default method that's been used for nearly a century is not really effective, and we kind of knew that already. So let's now take a look at a few real life examples. Some case studies that were performed by Peter Wolf of Best Friends Animal Society and myself over the past several years. The first case we looked at was in Newburyport, Massachusetts. Newburyport is a waterfront town located on the Merrimack River, about 35 miles northeast of Boston. They had there for many years large number of cats on the waterfront. Of course, there's fishing done there, there's tourist attractions there, there's marinas there, many piers and wharfs, etc. Places for cats to find resources. So at one point, after the businesses there finally reached a point where they thought, the cats were an issue, some concerned citizens came in and went to the local Chamber of Commerce and to the local government and proposed a TNR campaign. They had heard about this in the early 90s through a video they saw from Great Britain. It was accepted. They had support for their program. And what they did is they began trapping the cats, thinking that they all were feral. We can go to the next slide. So what happened? They ended up being able to remove about a third of the cats that were sociable enough for adoption. So they saw an immediate reduction in the number of cats on the waterfront. But they didn't stop there. They kept trapping and returning the cats that weren't as sociable after they were sterilized. They did a couple of informal censuses in the beginning and determined that there were about 300 cats in total on the waterfront. But this total diminished over time due to attrition and, of course, due to the 1/3 that were removed for adoption. So by 2009, no resident cats remained on the waterfront. This was one of the first intensive targeting efforts, in the country. And they did ongoing monitoring. So anytime a cat may have moved in from another area, he was quickly trapped and sterilized and put back out. And a key here is that the last kitten born on the waterfront was in 1998. So 6 years after they began the program. So after that point in time, the only new cats that would ever appear were cats from the outside. And because of the ongoing monitoring, they were trapped and sterilized. So they were able to completely eliminate that population after 17 years. The last cat there was a cat named Zorro. He was 16 years old. So this coincides with what Tabitha was pointing out, that many outdoor cats live long, healthy lives. And that was certainly the case in Newburyport. And up until today, there are still no resident cats on the waterfront. So that's our first example. We can go to the next slide. The second example we're going to take a look at is a case called Cats in My Yard. There was a single TNR practitioner in Chicago, Illinois, in an urban residential neighborhood of Northwest Chicago known as Humboldt Park. This was after the passage of the Cook County Managed Care of Feral Cats Ordinance that was mentioned by Vicki. Well, she began practicing TNR in her own backyard. That's why it's called Cats in My Yard. And then she branched out to include doing TNR in her entire neighborhood. Well, how did she do this? Well, she knocked on doors, she talked to neighbors, she followed observable cats back to where they were being fed and discovered different colonies in her neighborhood over time. And she decided to practice TNR at all of those locations. You can see the outline of her neighborhood there. It's that trapezoid shaped yellow outline. In total, 195 cats were trapped as part of the program in 20 different colonies. And the program area was just under 1/2 square mile. We can go to the next slide. The neighborhood features a lot of single family and 2-family homes on narrow lots. You can see here that these homes were close together, plenty of alleyways and nooks and crannies, places for cats to hide and roam. So this is what the neighborhood looked like. Vanessa, as she did her TNR work, she tracked what she was doing and kept data. She kept track of the locations where the cats were trapped and returned, the sex, if known. A lot of times that wasn't known until after the sterilization surgery. She assigned age categories to the cats, either adult or kitten. She defined a kitten as 12 weeks of age or less. A lot of times it's going to be 6 months, but she used 12 weeks. She documented their perceived level of socialization to determine which ones were good candidates for adoption. Their ear tip status, as Dr.G mentioned, ear tips are very important, and we're part of that program in Cook County. And their microchip status, same thing there with the program in Cook County. And their post-sterilization outcomes, were the cats returned to colony, were they transferred to a rescue group or a shelter for adoption, or were they euthanized due to serious health concerns, and their vaccination status. So she tracked all these things as part of her program. And colony membership was tracked at least once a year. She jogged, so she was in the neighborhood all the time, and she talked to her neighbors and residents as she jogged through the neighborhood. And she would ask about the cats and which ones were there, which ones were no longer there. But if she didn't happen to see somebody on a regular basis, at least once a year, she reached out to find out which cats were still there and which ones weren't. We can go to the next slide. So what were the results that she achieved? Well, Peter and I, what we did is we grouped the colonies by the number of years that they were tracked. And I should say in Cook County, Vicki talked about this a little bit. Their main concern was tracking sterilizations. So when we went there to find out what data they had, they did a very good job of tracking how many cats had been sterilized, but they really didn't look at how that impacted the population there of these colonies. So that's why Vanessa took it upon herself to do that in her neighborhood. So what we did when we looked at her logs and the data that she tracked is we grouped these colonies by the number of years that they had been tracked by her. So Group A began in 2007. That was the first colony that she had in her own yard. That colony was tracked for 10 years. She had discovered another colony in year 2 in 2008. That one was tracked for 9 years. 3 colonies discovered and enrolled in 2009. They were tracked for 8 years, et cetera. Overall, the average decline from the population size in these colonies from the year they were entered into her program was 54%. Now, we also looked at what was the decline from peak size. Now, you might say, well, why wouldn't peak size before you started TNR be the same as the size at enrollment into her program? Well, first, Vanessa didn't count all the cats that maybe a caretaker said were present until she visually documented those cats herself. So some cats that may have been around when she wasn't trapping, were not there when she was trapping, didn't get enrolled and counted in her censuses until years 2 or 3. And secondly, that's not really that unusual because cats move in between colonies and sometimes they're not there when these censuses are being taken. So it is not unusual in the literature to see where colonies have been tracked that the peak size is not in year one. So if we look at the average decline in population size from peak size, which averaged between year 2 and 3, it went up to 82%. So she had significant, really significant reductions in population size in that 4 to 10 year period, depending on how long these colonies were enrolled in her program. So this is a second example of targeted TNR at specific locations that was sustained with ongoing monitoring, and the success therefore was not only achieved, but sustained. The last kitten born in her program area was in 2009, so that was in year 2. It was year 6 at Newburyport where they had a number of more cats, and year 2 here in Chicago. So we can go to the next slide. The third example we're going to look at is a case study that we did at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. This program was contemporaneous to the one in Newburyport. It was one of the first large-scale programs in the nation, started in the early 90s. This study was first looked at by Dr. Julie Levy in 2002. And she did that along with David and Leslie Gale of Friends of Campus Cats, who started the program on the University of Central Florida campus. So Peter and I came back in 2019 and did a follow-up study to see if those results had been maintained. So as far as we know, that gives us a 28-year total program period that was looked at and documented. This is the longest time frame that a TNR program has been documented ever, as far as we know. If we look at this slide, what we see as far as the images here are concerned is the development that took place on the University of Central Florida campus between the early 90s and when we came in and did that follow-up study. In the lower right-hand corner is an arboretum. So what you see there in areas that look like that on campus, that's wooded area. But you can see aside from that arboretum, the rest of the campus evolved in terms of development significantly from the early 90s up until 2018. In fact, the size of the campus and student body went from 31,000 when Dr. Levy did her study in 2002 up to 81,000 by the time we came back in and looked at that 17 years later. And in fact, the University of Central Florida in 2018, based upon this metric of size of student body and faculty, was the largest public university in the United States. And I'll bring up why that's important on the next slide. And we can go to the next slide now. So if we take a look at the results here, first, the horizontal table that's at the top, even though the program started in 1991, they weren't able to do a complete comprehensive census until 1996. We've got to remember, this didn't start as a scientific venture in the early 90s. This started as people concerned about the cats on campus and wanting to reduce their population and the reproduction that was going on there. So they didn't have a comprehensive census at that time. But by 1996, they did. So based upon that, when Dr. Levy came in 2002, that 68 cats was down to 23. So that was a 66% reduction. When we came back in 2019, only 10 cats remained on campus. So that was an 85% reduction from the original census in 1996. Another way of looking at this is how many cats in total were enrolled in this program over the course of time. So when Dr. Levy came in 2002, even though the census in 1996 at that point said there were 68 cats, a total of 155 cats had passed through the program. The ones from 1991, before 1996, et cetera. So if we look at this as 155 cats being reduced to 23, that's an 85% reduction. But what's also interesting here is that from 2002 to 2019, that 155 cats enrolled in the program only increased by 49 over 17 years. So that was only fewer than 3 cats per year on a campus that was growing from 31,000 students and faculty to 81,000. Why was that? Well, because in 1995, as of 1995, there were no more kitten birds on campus. So the only cats that were coming onto the campus grounds were ones migrating in from adjacent areas. And those, again, there was ongoing monitoring done. Those cats were quickly trapped, sterilized, and released, so they couldn't reproduce. So by 2019, only a total of 204 cats had been enrolled in the program. And that was down to 10, of course, at the end. So that was a reduction of 95%. So we have a common theme here of kitten births being eliminated. It took 6 years in Newburyport, only 2 years in Chicago, and it took 4 years, or 4 years in Orlando here on the University of Central Florida. So once that's been achieved, and you do ongoing monitoring to catch and sterilize any new cats that enter the program area, you're really gonna have sustained success. So when people ask, does TNR work? Yes, it works. Can it work in the long term? Absolutely. We can go to the next slide. Here is a summary of 6 different case studies, including the 3 that we just talked about, and a 4th that was done by Peter and myself last year, involving a program called Project Baycat. That one took place on a 2-mile stretch of pedestrian trail that's adjacent to the San Francisco Bay. Also on here in the 4th column is a study performed by Rachel Chrysler and her associates at a private residential community in Key Largo, Florida. And then in the 6th column, all the way to the right, is a case study that was done by Helen Swarbrick and her associates in Sydney, Australia, on a college campus. But what are the common themes here, once again, that I've highlighted? The long-term documentation of data ranging between 4 to 10 years, as we talked about in Chicago, all the way up to 28 years at the University of Central Florida. If we look at the total number of cats managed in San Francisco, it was 258. Again, the 204 at UCF. With cats moving in from adjacent areas, it was estimated to be 340 at Newburyport. Now, they had a lot of cats at this private residential community in Key Largo. And they made great efforts in getting them adopted out. And they took them to veterinarian there. So they had many, many records. So they documented over 2,500 cats there. And they were there longer than 14 years, many years before this study occurred. So 2,500 cats there, 195 in Chicago and 122 in Sydney. But the population was reduced. The total number that were enrolled reduced by 99% down to 1 cat in San Francisco over 16 years. 85% again down to 5 cats. UCF 100% Newburyport, 55% at Key Largo, 41 in Chicago, and 78% in Sydney. So this table, this summary table, is included in the guide that Vicki talked about, that the Together Initiative and Ohio Animal Advocates just put together. So that's in there for you. And it's also in the handouts in the Project Baycat paper that was published last year. It's not exactly the same as this table, but it's very similar if you want to use that as evidence to support your arguments. Feel free to reach out to me if you want copies, PDFs of any of these studies, or you can simply go on to Google Scholar and punch in the names Spehar, Wolf, Chrysler in the case of Key Largo, Swarbrick in the case of Sydney, and these will come up. The papers will come up, and you're free to look at those anytime. They're all in open access journals and print off PDFs of those at any point in time. So that's the nice thing about open access publication, is that anybody can get on those at any time. So we can go to the next slide. So the bottom line is that TNR works. There is plenty of anecdotal evidence out there, which, you know, we've all heard and we all have experienced ourselves. But there's also plenty of data in the scientific research that's been documented that's available to you when you're making your argument for the humane, effective solution, which is TNR, rather than the default solution that was used for so many years and still is, unfortunately, lethal control, trap and kill, feeding bans, etc. So I hope you've gained some information that you can use here when you're making your argument. Again, reach out if you're not sure about something, or we're going to have the Q&A after Sterling's presentation, which is next. So I'll be done here in a second, and we'll get to that much anticipated keynote. But feel free to reach out. I'm happy to provide you with whatever I can. So I am finished. We're going to turn things over a few minutes early, as long as he's ready, to Sterling Davis. Otherwise, I'll take a few questions. I'm hoping he's ready, but if not, that's okay. It looks like he might be. When he comes on here, we'll turn it over to him. But are there any questions on the chat? Maybe I can answer real quick if Sterling's not quite ready yet. I know I finished up a few minutes before I thought I would. Oh, there he is. There's the man. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Sterling, and I'll answer any questions you had during the chat. All right, take it away.
Let me get can y'all hear me now? Can you hear me? Everybody can hear me good? Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up if y'all can hear me. I don't know if y'all can see me, hear me, what's going on? I don't know. Okay, Liz said we can. All right. So let's get started. I just want to make sure I got everything set up. Let me make sure. All right, all right, all right. So we got the slide. Okay, so I'm believing that Liz has me on slide help. My code word for when I want to switch to a slide will be none other than meow, because what else would it be? So yeah, my name is Sterling Trap King Davis. I go by Trap King from my nonprofit Trap King Humane Cat Solutions. And first of all, I want to say this, because my name is Sterling, I've been listening to every speaker. Shout out to all y'all. Every time y'all said sterile or sterilization, I swear I thought y'all was calling my name. But all right, so meow. Yeah, there we go. So normally I would start off explaining TNR, the meaning of it, definition, everything. All the speakers that you all just heard have given great information, and I'm sure y'all know what TNR is, that it's the humane alternative to euthanasia for stray and feral cats. So I won't dig into the meaning too much. Meow. So let's get into my story. This couple pictures of me. I grew up, and I want to tell y'all the reason for my story is I want to, let people know how I got started in it, because it's rare. It's not usually common for Black men to be into cats. I grew up being a class clown. I probably was skipping school in this picture right here, y'all see on the right. More than likely I was doing something bad I wasn't supposed to be doing. And I grew up in an area where it just wasn't cool for men to be into cats at all. It wasn't cool for them to do stuff like paint their nails either. So, but that was me. Somebody said, what a cute, innocent looking boy. I wish. But yeah, I grew up in an area where it was no cats, no cat rescue. Like, it wasn't cool. I always loved the cats, but I was like the only one on my block loving cats. Meow. In the military as well, when I went to the military, it was, and a lot of it, I think it's a lot of, I guess, machismo in the Black community. So growing up and in the military, it just wasn't cool to get cats. I would talk about cats here and there. Guys would be like, yo, what are you talking about? You're supposed to have a dog, like get a dog. Oh, you know what? Let's meow, because I think that's showing how old I am. So after the military, I was like, screw all what everybody talking about. I got me a cat. This is my homie Rick James right here. Love Rick James to pieces. And I said, forget it. I didn't care that girls didn't want to date me because I had a cat, and my homeboys was making fun of me because I had a cat. But I was like, screw it, I'm getting a cat. So I got my homie Rick James. But I didn't know nothing about cats, rescue, TNR, nothing. So I bought Rick James from a breeder, and I had Rick James the Claude. Back then, I didn't know that was totally bad. And I didn't know that the claw in a cat is the equivalent of cutting off your finger at the tip right here. These are things I didn't know. I didn't know that at all. But I had my cat. I was vegetarian at the time. I thought I was doing right. And that's a lot of the reason why I started doing what I'm doing. Meow. So after I got Rick James, I was a cat guy, but I still didn't know nothing about TNR, didn't know nothing about rescue. I went back into rap. That's what I've always done, music and entertainment. Two of these folks right here, Snow the Product is the young lady, Ritz is the guy on the left. These two artists that I would tour with, but I was doing music. I was into music, nothing to do with cats rescue at all. Rick James would be at the house mad at me because I was always going on music tours. So meow. This is Rick James telling me, like, and I love this because a lot of people say they talk to their cats and their cats talk back to them. This is a real live scene of Rick James telling me, yo, your music is cool, it's all right, but it's more you need to do. It's something else you need to do. Like there's a greater calling. And I know people be like, man, your cat didn't say that to you, whatever. He did say that to me. He talked to me all the time. And yes, Vicki, he is the alpha. Meow. So I started working for a rescue in between tours. Like, y'all, this is gonna sound crazy, and it sounded crazy to my homeboys too, but I in between music tours, and I was about to go on a big music tour. Like, this was gonna be the biggest one I had been on. And in between it, I was like, yo, I'm just gonna do something real quick to not just spend money, and waste time in between tours. So I started working for a rescue, a local cat rescue, just helping out, scooping litter. And it was dope. Like, I loved it. Like, it hit me instantly. Kind of like thinking like what Rick was saying might be my calling. But so I started working for the rescue, just scooping litter. And it was cool. But I started to see a few things that really hit me, like really hit me in a different way. I saw the disconnect between the Black community and the cat rescue community. I saw how unaware and uneducated a lot of Black and brown communities were when it came to cat rescue. So meow. So do y'all know that guy there? I know a lot of y'all know that guy right there, but this is what did it for me. While I was working for the shelter, for the rescue, there was a conference in Atlanta, and it was a best friends conference, I think it was. And we went, and I saw this guy speak, Jackson. I had seen him on TV before. I liked him. He another bald dude with a weird beard and tattoos. So how could you not like him? But I'm literally in this picture, I'm in the audience, and I'm listening to this dude speak. And I mean, like, right after that, I was like, TNR is trap, neuter, return. In hip hop, they do Trap King. Trap King and Trap Queen is so big in hip hop. And I'm literally sitting in the audience thinking like, yo, trap, neuter, return. I could be the king of trap neuter return, and it could be Trap King. And that right there could be something to relate to the Black and brown community. I could probably grab their attention and get them into it and educate more. Ideas just flowing, meow. And that's when I started it. In 2017, I sat there at that conference after watching Jackson Galaxy. And I was like, yo, I need to come up with a hood ratchet version of Hello Kitty or something. I need something that's going to reach Black and brown communities, like grab their attention. And I sat there and came up with this logo using 3 different apps. I am not artistic, so this was very hard. It took a lot of time, but Trap King and Trap Queen is so big in the hip hop community that it's usually people, if you're a Trap King or you're a Trap Queen in the hood, you're glorified. You're glorified as the big, bad boss, top person of whatever you're doing. Whatever you're doing. A lot of people be like, I'm the Trap King, Queen of Walmart, or I'm the Trap King at this or that. So I came up with this logo and I was like, I think this is going to do it, because typically, like everybody that trained me, it was middle-aged white women. So I wanted a way to grab the attention of Black and brown communities. And that's what I came up with, meow. And as y'all can see, it's been going pretty good. I've been traveling around, doing TNR, rescue, like a lot of mass events. The plan, one of the ultimate goals of mine is to literally travel and help jumpstart TNR programs, and mainly in Black and brown communities where a lot of my volunteers have been ran out, because again, middle-aged white women, they, that's who's normally doing this. That's why I'm looked at so rare and weird. And I've had so many times where I've had to go back with my volunteers and my cat ladies and go in certain neighborhoods where they were being harassed and, told to leave. They thought they was the cat. They thought they was the issue why there were so many cats. They didn't understand that your trash is all over the place. The cats are scavenging and you're not doing TNR. So that was a big part of what I was doing. And all of these pictures, I probably done worked and trapped with all of them, meow. Oh yeah, I had this slide right here because I wanted y'all to see this guy in the left corner, right over here. If y'all can see that, Catman of West Oakland. Shout out to the Catman of West Oakland. That's a homie. But again, it was like Trap King was doing good. I mean, doing my thing, spreading the word. Meow. So I sold everything I had, and y'all probably gonna look at me the same way all my rap buddies looked at me when I said that I'm not coming back on tour. I am going to sell everything I have, and I'm gonna get this vehicle. I'm gonna live out of it, and I'm gonna rescue cats, and that's what I'm gonna do with my life now. And everybody was looking at me like probably how y'all looking now, and I can't see y'all face in this Zoom, but it was like, dude, you serious? Like everybody on tour, and I'm talking about this was in the middle of a big tour. So people was like, yo, are you serious? Like Sterling done lost his mind out here. Like this dude, you saying you're gonna leave the tour, sell everything you got, and live out of a vehicle to rescue cats? Yep, that's what I was doing. And really, when I say that, when I tell that story, people be like, that's crazy. But being in the military, and doing music, I was used to living out of my sea bag. I was used to living on the road. So it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't like I'm suffering or punishing myself. It was a good thing. And like I said, when I went to this rescue, I felt like it was my calling. So it wasn't a bad thing. Meow. And check this out. When in that van, I got to, instead of being in the audience, I got to meet that guy, Jackson. And I know y'all know the young lady on the right. That's Hannah, Kitten Lady. Shout out to Jackson and Kitten Lady. They done gave me so much information and helped me a lot on my journey. Meow. So one of the things I want to say, this is just a bunch of stuff of me trapping, but one of the things that really got me when I was out, shout out to Liz Cordero right there in that picture. She was amazing out of Florida. One of the things that got me going strong, that really solidified that I was going to stay in this. And I want to tell y'all this story. I'm not going to take up too much time. I want to get to the Q&A things too, but I was out trapping and I was about to take some cats back. I was returning some kitties and I saw some guys walking up on me. They coming up. I'm from Detroit. I know what that means. That's usually not a positive thing when you got a group of guys in a circle coming to you. So when I talked to them, they were like, you know, white people, they put tracking devices and diseases in cats, and then they dump them back in in Black communities to hurt us. And at that point, I was like, I mean, that was like the epiphany, because I was like, yo, and I sat there and talked to these dudes. I was like, yo, that's absolutely not what's happening here. Like, that's why wouldn't it be in something more typical? Like, if Black people don't even like cats, why would we do it in cats? Why not boxers, pit bulls, or something like that? But that was the moment where it was like, okay, I literally have to do something about this disconnect. And it seemed like everything that I have been doing, from the military, the fact that I've always wanted to live a life of service. I wanted to have a positive impact on every living creature's life path that I crossed. So between the military and then the music, being able to perform, it was like, yo, all this time I thought I was supposed to be a rapper and do this or do that, but I think everything had come together for me to deliver this message. Meow. This slide has nothing to do with nothing. This is Rick James again. I just gotta shout him out because, again, when I got Rick James, I bought him from a breeder. I did not know no better. I was vegetarian at the time. You couldn't tell me that I wasn't the biggest animal lover in the world and I was doing anything wrong. Rick James passed the crazy year 2020 on my birthday, January the 8th, at the beginning of that crazy year. And I always got to show this slide because I have to shout him out. Rick James is the reason why I do what I do, because I didn't know. And I thought I was doing so well. And that's a lot of why I do what I do, because it's so many people that are just unaware. Like, when I first was told about TNR, I didn't know if they was talking about a new drug or the new dance. Like, the CEO of the company was like, Sterling, you know what TNR is? And I'm like, yo, I'm trying to get my life together. I'm not on tour no more. I don't want to do no new drugs. Like, please stop it. So I didn't even know what it was. So Rick James is so much of the reason why I do what I do. Like I said, I had him declawed. I bought him from a breeder. If y'all are in rescue, so I know y'all know, like me, we will kick our own butts forever, but I always want to represent and show my buddy Rick James, because he the reason why I do it. Meow. This is me with my homegirl Samantha Martin of the Amazing Acro Cats. So I promise I'm gonna bring it all together. So Samantha Martin, I actually met her because I saw a show where it was like a cat circus, and people in rescue was like, hey, you got to go see about this woman, because I think she's not doing right by the animals. She's doing a cat circus. I went and met her. She's not abusing the cats or nothing like that. She's great person, great show. Y'all got to check it out if y'all never saw the Amazing Acro Cats. But I saw her whistle, and she had the cats trained. And when she blew the whistle, all the cats ran to their carriers, right inside the carriers. And of course, rescue, I'm thinking, oh my God, like for TNR or for going to the vet, like if we could somehow bring all of that together. So meow. So I met with Samantha Martin. We rescued these babies together. If y'all follow me, that little white one right there in the middle, that is Tabitha Joe when she was a baby. The gray one behind her is my baby Bowie, because my birthday the same day as David Bowie's. So I had to show y'all my baby's meow. That's us training them. So like one of the things that I want to put out here too while I'm talking about all of this, clicker training and whistle training, y'all. Like it is, holy crap, it's amazing. And I'll just focus, I just quick on whistle training. Instead of running around the house, like with the carrier, like, come on, Floofy, come on, Floofy, come on, come on, come on, get in the trap, get in the trap, get in the trap. If you can feed, whistle, like you put the food in the carrier, you whistle when it's dinner time, and it gets them used to the carrier. So going to the vet becomes a lot easier, especially if you leave that trap. So you leave that carrier out and you feed in the carrier, and it works wonders. Like when you blow that whistle, they come running, they love the carrier. That way they love the vet, because I know some of y'all in here, y'all got cats. Y'all pull that carrier out when it's time to go to the dentist, and what your cat do? Deuces, I'm out. They run away and hide because they already know what it is. That means I'm about to get poked and stuck and all of that stuff. So the whistle training is a beautiful thing. Meow. That's my baby Tabitha Joe, older, a little bigger, riding with me, and that's in the van that I was living in. She loved riding to death. And you can see in the one picture right here on the right, well, both pictures actually, I think I'm wearing that whistle. When I was just saying I'm wearing that whistle, because it really do work. She know when I blow that, it's time to come. It helps out with everything. Meow. Oh yeah, this your boy trapping that Planned Parenthood. Look at, I forgot all about this picture. But so a lot of what I'm doing, what I want to do is to bridge the gap between TNR, animal rescue as a whole, and the Black community. Like what those dudes told me, they had no idea. They never heard of TNR. I never heard of TNR. Like when I got Rick James, I didn't know about rescue. I didn't know about declawn, none of that stuff. So everything that I've been doing, everything on this journey of mine is to bridge that gap. And I feel like comedy, the same way with animals, it can bring people together. Like ain't nobody gonna deny a good joke. Ain't nobody gonna walk away from a cute kitten or a puppy. So I want to use that. I want to use rescue not to just educate people, but to bring all of us together. I really think it's something that could do that. Animals, cats, meow. So this is the end of my slide, but I wanted to leave enough time because I wanted to get into the Q&A, and because everybody before me, like, let me just say this. When I first started doing TNR, I was the only one that looked like me. Everybody like Tabitha, Dan, everybody that y'all done seen have made me what I am. This is literally what all the ladies in rescue have done. Like in TNR, the woman that trained me, Mickey Blair, the main woman that trained me, Mickey Blair, I literally watched her burn out. Like I literally watched her burn out. And that's why I love the presentation on compassion, fatigue, and burnout, because it's so important. So much of what I want to do is to make this fun, to make it cool. Earlier, when it was saying like, I'm like a rock star, I really appreciate that, because I want everybody to know, every woman, every man that's doing this, you are a rock star. If you're going to be selfless, if you're going to volunteer, if you're out here rescuing animals, you are a rock star. We got to celebrate ourselves more. Like so many times I see in cat rescue, any animal rescue at all, and I see it in the vegan community too. I see us jump on each other. We overly critical, and it's tough, especially in rescue, because again, everybody that's listening, that's here now, you know, if you're in rescue, we hard on ourselves as is. We kick our butts. And if you been out all day and you rescuing cats, you doing this, and you see you know, you got a cat that you got to take back to an area you don't want to take back, but this is, you got to do it. It's the only way. It's the best way. The best position for this cat to be in is not that good, and you're gonna beat yourself up about it. And you go through a day like that, and then somebody walk up to you and be like, man, you ain't really do nothing, or you're not really doing it right. Like, we have to really be better with each other, as far as just not being like, don't down one another. I see the post so much where you have somebody post something and another rescuer come up under that post on social media and say, you're not doing this right, or you doing that, or you doing that. Like, everything that I'm doing is trying to get this to us. We got to fix the fixers. Let me say that. Fix the fixers. It's the compassion fatigue and burnout is real. Thank you, Crystal. The compassion fatigue and burnout is real, y'all. And diversity in animal rescue is what's going to do it. I want to say a few things too before I open up the Q&A to all my rescue peeps that's trying to get the Black and brown community's attention. You're trying to go into that neighborhood and you want to talk to them and you want them to listen to what you're saying. I want to say a couple things that, and this is from experience. Leave Michael Vick out of it. Don't talk about Michael Vick. Y'all know who Michael Vick is. I know who Michael Vick is, right? You know who Michael Vick is. I want to body slam him, like, repeatedly. But a lot of people in the Black community feel like that man has served his time, and they don't agree with the fact that his career is over because of that. And it causes a ton of arguments. So one of those main tips that I want to say is, when you go into those communities, listen to the community, leave the politics, religion, and Michael Vick out of it. I've gotten into this a billion times, and when you get into any of those things, it moves the focus off of cats and rescue and goes into something else. I've told cat ladies with bumper stickers all over their car, like, those bumper stickers are great. I hope they are cats. I hope none of those bumper stickers are religious or political, because again, in a lot of these Black and brown communities, it causes a debate that has nothing to do with nothing. So I always want to give that tip out there. I'm gonna open it up for Q&A, but I want to say this before we even get to that. ABC at 8 p.m. October 29th. Please tune in to that. Cats and cat rescue is about to change. But I want to open up this Q&A here. Dan, is it cool if I want to look at some of these questions and see?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've got 8 minutes of exclusively you. So whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I wanted to open it up to the people, because y'all gave, like, I've been sitting here watching this all border, that y'all information is like through the roof. Like, it's so I wanted to tell my story and leave some time for Q&A for people to hit me directly with what they want to hit me with.
Yeah, awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Get me out of here.
So let me see here. I'm gonna go through some of these. Amen. Oh my goodness. Thank you. That was, yeah. So let me see. Oh, this is the Q&A, but this isn't is this for me? No, it's Trap King recruiting and training new trappers in underserved communities. Yes. And let me tell you about that, the future of it. And again, I can't say too much because I'm under kind of an NDA in a sense, but this is what I want to say. So imagine this, because I grew up in gangs. I've been in a gang. It's been crazy. I want to make a fraternity and sorority, Trap King, Trap Queen, based on cat rescue. So you imagine this, like the Letterman jacket with patches, different patches for how many lives you saved. So you get like, if you didn't save like 300 cats, you got a big old patch on your back. It's almost to the point to where people got to salute you when you come in the room if you're wearing that. So yes, I'm recruiting people. That my goal is to have a fraternity and a sorority nationwide for TNR and community cat care. We're in the process of trying to put a center in every city, at least one in every city, where people can come, grab a trap, grab some bait, go out, trap the cat, bring the cats that they catch back to that location. And from there, we take care of it. Regardless of what the law is going to say. I'm on a mission to make TNR free. And there's that. So yes, always recruiting. Thank you for asking that. And if you know anybody that want to do that, holla at me. How do we engage more people like you? Do you have tools or resources for us? Oh my goodness, that's the best question in the world. And for one, I'm gonna say this because I understand my cat ladies, that is very difficult to get people engaged. Is just not engaged in it. But the one thing that we can do, the main thing we can do, is love, respect, and help one another. We gotta work together. It's hard to engage other people if they see us fighting one another in this. So it's like, if we be like, yo, you want to come rescue these cats, but we constantly fighting each other, they like, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get into that. Y'all always fighting each other. Y'all always sad. Y'all always mad. So one of the things that we can do is the approach. Like, you should see, if you're doing TNR, you a trap queen. Your approach should be, when I go out trapping, I'm like Rambo when he putting his makeup on. I'm getting my stuff ready. I'm getting dressed. I'm in the mirror. Like, I feel like I'm a rock star. That's one of the main things we can do is make sure that we let people know volunteering is fun. It's a positive thing. It's a good experience if you volunteering, if you out doing it. That's one of the major things to get more people of color, BIPOC, engaged in it. But also just listen. Just listen. When when we go to these communities, just understand that a lot of people don't know. Just like me, I did not know nothing about TNR, rescue, ear tipping, declaw. I didn't know any of that. So when you go in these neighborhoods, just understand that you're going to deal with a lot of people that don't know, don't understand. So make sure you listen to them. Some of the stuff they going to say ain't going to make sense, not going to be right, not going to be about cats. But just listen to them and make sure that you're showing concern for all the living creatures in that area. Because I've had a lot of people, when I go out and I'm trapping, and they like, yo, y'all come in here and y'all see the kids with holes in their shoes and the bums and the poor people and the struggle, but then y'all just step over all of that and go help the cat or the dog. So in their minds, they're thinking us cat people just cats, and we not, nothing to do with the community. So to answer that question in a billion different ways, in a roundabout way, make sure you listen to the community and be willing to work with. I know people gonna say something stupid and get on your nerves, but be willing to listen, be willing to work with them, and then understand that they probably not gonna know as much as you, but you're here for the cats. I hope that answered your question. How do you feel about the Boy Scouts possibly offering? Oh my God, Angela, have we talked before? Because I've speaking for, oh wait, let me say the question out loud, because y'all like, we don't even know what she said. So the question was about a TNR badge for Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. And just like with the fraternity sorority thing, I'm really trying to get a badge, a TNR badge for the Cub Scouts. Like, they outdoors, their community, it makes all the sense in the world. And again, to answer that previous question, that's another way. The children, when I go, the reason I got cats all over my vehicle and everything like that is because I drive through the community like the ice cream truck. The kids see me first. And once I instill it in the kids, once you teach that compassion young, then they go get the parents. The parents might deny you as a TNR person, but they're not going to deny the kids. So that's another way too. Let me see what we got. Let me see what we got. Oh no, that's Tabitha. Oh my goodness, Tabitha, y'all. Everybody got questions for Tabitha out here. I got questions for Tabitha. Tabitha even told me this one, and I don't know if y'all on Rescue even heard this one, but Tabitha was the first one to be like, every time I trap a cat, I'm walking up to the trap like, hey, did you get trapped? Did you do this? And I got the high voice going, probably stressing them out. Like more and more with the high voice in an already stressful situation. So yeah, I done learned a ton from Tabitha. Make sure y'all be careful with the high voice because they already scared out there. Let me see. Let me look at the questions. Let's publish one. Hey, oh, and I do for anybody, that's another thing too. I do have a book, a children's TNR book. It's called Marvin, Trap King for a Day. It's a pretty cool book, but it's the point is to teach the compassion young. It's on Amazon. I'm gonna try to put it in a thing later on in a minute. But check that out. And I'm hoping in the future I can get back to visiting schools. I was going to schools for a while before the pandemic, and I was demonstrating TNR. I would do it I've been doing it for HOAs, apartment complexes, using my baby Tabitha Jo, who y'all saw on the slide earlier. I would go do presentations in front of the HOAs where she walks in the trap, show how the trap works, show that it's not hurting the cat, show how effective it is. And that helped out a lot too. But I think just overall, the concept I'm gonna be pushing more and more, fix the fixers and unity, us working together. I think that's gonna really help get people more engaged. The Scout Merit Badge is outstanding. Yeah, let's do it. If anybody got connections to that, like I'm doing a billion things in one. If anybody got connections to that, as far as the Cub Scouts on how to do that, I am very interested in making that happen. I think that should be a set badge for the Cub Scouts. So thank you for that one. Let me see if we got some old questions. Oh, no, that's not me, Doctor. We have had Eagle Scouts make shelters for our program as their project. Yeah, I did that in Minneapolis. In Minneapolis, we went out and we had a winter weather workshop with the Girl Scouts, even though they was mad at me actually when I went out there because they really didn't care to hear or see me. They wanted to see Tabitha Jo, and I didn't bring her. So they was like I'm sitting there explaining it to them, TNR or how to make the house. And one girl raised her head and was like, "Are you Tabitha's dad?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She was like, "So you really didn't bring her?" I'm like, no, she was kind of tired. I mean, that little girl was hilarious. She was like completely out of it after that. Like, I do not want to talk to you. Let me see what we got. We'll make scout inquiries for Ohio. Tracy, yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we need to, yeah. My girl Tabitha, so I'm gonna be out there in Ohio too. So yes, thank you. Dan the man.
Just in case, I mean, great, keep shooting your questions at Sterling, but if you have questions for any of the other speakers who've stuck around, let's open it up to everybody.
Yeah, I was just about to say, all questions.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I know Tabitha.
Yeah, she had to run to another conference in Columbus, I think, so she's on the road, so she's not with us, but
Popular girl.
Hey, she done taught me, so I know.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Greg, thanks for bro. Thanks for what you do too. Thank all of y'all, man. Seriously.
I know it's a amazing group of people here. They're all very inspiring.
Who is that from? I can't believe your new baby's name is Tabitha Jo. One of our kitties' name is Tabitha Jo. Oh, you got a kitty named Tabitha Jo? Wow. My other baby is Alanis Musette, and she's actually I'm about to make her mad. Come here, mama. Come here. Come say hi. Come say hi. You're my baby. You're my baby. Say hi, Alanis. That's Alanis
There you
Musette.
go.
She gonna make me pay for waking her up. Say hey, mama. My girl. Who is that? Oh, thank you. That is amazing that somebody else got a cat named Tabitha Joe. I thought I was the only one obsessed with Janet Jackson and doing that one, because that's Janet Jackson's middle name. Like all my cats have a music theme. Rick James, Tabitha Joe, Bowie from David Bowie. God, it's fire. And Alanis Morissette. Yeah.
Yeah, we had
I
a
just wanted-
question that I think Dr. Gonzalez would like to answer.
Yeah, I was reading the question from Tofu Cat. The question reads, it's directed to Tabitha and then anybody else in the panel. It looks like she brought in a cat that was left behind in a condo thinking he was a timid cat and stressed family cat. And kind of long story short, after all this time, the cat is not really wanting to be around her and says will not let her touch him and wants to stay in the crate. So rescue and adoption is not an option. So, and he cannot be released where he came from. So as far as options, my recommendation would be finding a good farmhouse type environment to take him in. That's going to be the overall best situation for that cat, because clearly it's a cat that seems to not be completely afraid of humans. So it may be okay with humans, some limited human interaction and being around humans, but just not being an indoor cat. So I know that there are places and people that have farms that are looking for cats to be mousers or just to have them as companionship in the barn. So that would be my recommendation for that. I think it would be a great fit for that cat.
If I could chime in on that too, I've used LinkedIn to get to barns. I've put cats profiles like they looking for a job on LinkedIn. People thought it was hilarious, but they got the job though. Like I put the cat up on LinkedIn and it was like, hey, I was at a warehouse. I caught all the mice. Now I'm out of work. I need a job. Can you help me? People really reached out to get that cat. So don't be afraid to use some of those methods either. Tinder kicked me off for putting adoption kitties on there, but LinkedIn never kicked me off. Don't be afraid to use LinkedIn to get that baby to a farmhouse.
That might be the most useful thing for LinkedIn I've ever heard, actually.
Right. That's all I've ever even used it for. They'd be like, you don't even use it for work stuff. It's work stuff, all right. It's just, I'm not on there. It's the cats.
Were there any other questions, Vicki, that you noticed that were hanging out there?
Dan, I think you got them all.
I want to what is this? I want to recognize the race.
Somebody's giving a shout out. We have a page called Rascal Extreme on Facebook.
Oh, Rascal.
And yeah. So actually, it's a page where, a lot of the stuff I love to educate, and a lot of the stuff that we see and we share is not for all audiences. So we have a Rascal Extreme page that we put all of the cool, weird, gross, and things that not everybody wants to see. So Rascal Extreme on Facebook for anybody that wants to see fun stuff.
Rascal, I'm gonna have to follow y'all because I'm in like a ton of cat rescue groups. I'm probably gonna I can learn some new tips from there. I'm always learning.
Yeah, if you haven't seen good nasopharyngeal polyp videos, that's the place.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, we're famous for those.
Dr. G. Let me see. Okay. Ohio barn cat placement does it to you. Oh, can I say this too though about the relocate acclimation units? Gotta have a proper acclimation unit when you if you're gonna relocate to a barn too. I just wanted to say that. I know I've had people, I've told people before, oh, you could take the cat to a barn, and I think they misunderstood me and didn't have a proper acclimation unit. Like they could just open the trap up and be like, there you go. No, you need to communicate with the barn, talk to them, and they should have a proper acclimation unit as far as it's like a fenced in deal or whatever, where the cats can sit and hang out in there for weeks, get used to the smells, the sights, the sounds. And then when you let them go, the hope is that they stay, which is still a difficult process. But if you are in a situation like that to relocate a cat, that's the best way to do it. Look at her playing.
Gotta be patient with that relocation process too. It can take time. So just be very patient. It can take a while. There are a lot of cats looking for places to go. So just be patient. But it'll happen.
Oh yeah, I usually relocating is the last resort for me. I try not to relocate, but if you are, the best way is with a proper relocation unit to a barn where they could be Mausers. So
Right.
I'm sorry if y'all hear this background noise. My cat is going crazy.
Any other questions?
And when I put her on camera, of course she stopped.
So you're asking how many volunteers do we now have at Friendship APL? Right now, we're probably about 70 to 80 active volunteers that are actively volunteering. What's one of the things that makes me really proud is that we have between, I want to say, 10 active trappers that are really affiliated with us or acting through us or using our spay neuter services at this point, that are really out in the community. The last time I spoke on this, I think there were just 2 of us, and now we're up to 10 or I want to say 10 truly active trappers in our community, including a part-time but nearly full-time person on staff that's doing that as well. So dedicated to it.
Can I say something too? I want to say this
Sure.
too, because somebody was asking about ways to get people engaged. I'm going to say this, and it's going to probably be a little much to say, but I'm going to say it. For a lot of rescues and stuff, people actually pay for somebody like me, Jackson, Kitten Lady, to come out and speak and do events and things to that nature. But if we use some of that money to hold contests in Black and brown communities, that's another way to engage. I was asked that question earlier, and that's something I'm about to do. Like the money that people are paying me to come out and speak, I'm going to use that to have a contest. So with that contest, it'll like I've done it before where I've had young kids text me when they see a cat go in a trap. So that way I can go to another location, because you got to watch the traps. So, but this way it helped me to get kids to watch my traps, and I can go trap somewhere else. So the first kid text me, I give you $30. The second kid text me, I give you $20. The third kid, give you $15. But a contest will help you find the people that actually will be interested in it in that area. Do a contest. Probably only got to do one. It'll be crazy because some neighborhoods I do have kids running up to me when I pull in there like, look, I got a cat. Do I get some money? It'll get kind of crazy, but it will get motivated. It will motivate those that actually will be willing. You'll find our tribe.
That is great. Them kids lined up like an ice cream truck holding cats.
Right. I had to, it got out of hand for a minute because I had to tell some kid, this is 2021. This little boy was just trying to get in the van. And I was like, whoa, you cannot get inside. Don't do that. That's not what's happening. We're not doing that. We're talking about cats. You're not going to get inside this vehicle. Don't do that. But it does get them, it teaches the compassion young and get them excited. And like I was saying, if you get to the kids, you go get the parents.
You really are good at generating a lot of enthusiasm in the community. So I think that's just really amazing how positive and upbeat and uplifting you always stay. It's always inspirational to, I think, everybody involved. Is just because you just burn out from it after a while. It just seems like you never get ahead of the game, and you just you're constantly spinning your wheels, and it can feel really overwhelming. And that's what I was always saying is it's that ability, the small victories, the small wins, the finding the humor in things. It's so important for us, because to find those people that can remind us that this is fun, that actually it doesn't have to be just grudgingly horrible work all the time.
Right. I always tell people it's okay to be okay while you do rescue. Like, it's so important. And like I said, the woman that trained me, Mickey Blair, That was the most, it was crazy. It was the scariest thing I ever saw. Like the last thing she said to me is, I don't ever want to see a video of a cat again. And this woman was the queen of it all. She did it and she burnt out, literally burnt out. Last thing she said, I'm going to walk the Appalachian Trail. I don't know what that means. And I haven't seen her since. And I mean, like, burnout, done, gone. And I know that's happening to vets, vet techs, rescuers. Like, we gotta be good to each other, y'all. Fix the fixers. I'm gonna keep saying, y'all gonna get, people are gonna be so tired of me saying fix the fixers in a minute. Why?
I actually think you're 100% right. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. What I'm saying all the time to people is just, you know, that idea of just taking care of yourself, watching each other's backs, looking out for each other. But, you know, there's a lot of, it's just a frustrating and sometimes just demoralizing line of, you know, if you only look at the negatives, you only look at the bad, you only look at the sad side, you know, you got to celebrate the small victories. You got to celebrate, you know, I'm trapping cats inside of a house right now. I'd actually leave, and after I'm done here, I have to actually go back. The person's gone from the home, and there are cats that are hiding all throughout this basically hoarding house. And so I have to trap inside the house, and every, you know, couple hours I have to go back out to this house, go back in this house, wade through mountains of garbage, yes, and to get through to get to the traps that I've set up. And, you know, and it's easy to just sit there and just focus on the negative. And, but at the same time, we have rehomed so many animals. Like within 2 days, there's a hoarding case involving 50 animals. We were able to rehome 48 animals so far out of that situation. And so, you know, you got to see the bright side of it, not the always the negative. And it's just easy to focus on the negative and the frustration. And
we gotta definitely start to focus. We gotta do the positive, and we gotta celebrate one another. Be happy about it. Like I tell people all the time, Trap King doesn't, that's not me saying I'm the best at trapping cats. I am not. These other presenters are probably better, done it more, know more, all of that. And it's a lot of people do, but I want us to take pride in when we do it. You know, if you're doing it, you a Trap King, you a Trap Queen, everybody that's doing it. It's a rock star life if you can volunteer and do something selfless like that. I hope everybody that's doing it feels that way. I do.
I think a lot of people are afraid to pat themselves on the back when they do these things too, because they're afraid of that like self-aggrandizement. Like they're just like, I'm like, no, talk about your stuff, brag about the good stuff. Everybody talks about the bad stuff, brag about the good stuff, brag about the good stuff. Like you don't have to feel like you might inspire somebody out there to do something.
Right.
If you do that, like I guarantee you've inspired so many people to get involved in animal welfare and to get involved in rescue and get involved in trapping. Like that's the thing that's when social media is its best, is it's not tearing people down. It's actually inspiring people to do more, to do better, to learn more. I mean, how many, you know, future veterinarians is your extreme page going to inspire out there? How many kids are going to be on there and go, I want to remove polyps for the rest. I want to do these things. So like they want to do that stuff too. And then that's when you have that ability to inspire people to action and to change and to, you know, make a real difference. And the more people we can inspire, the less lonely it is, the less it's not just you doing all the work. It's tons of people doing it. You know, many hands make light work, you know.
Right. Somebody said we need 10 million Dr. G's. Yes.
No.
Yes.
There you go.
And
well, I know all
world.
you guys are so inspiring. Sterling, we can't express our appreciation too much to you for being here with us today. And I hope the speakers here and anybody else can keep in touch and follow what you're doing. So we're anxious to see what you're going to do next in that program on the 29th, you said, right?
Oh yeah, October 29th on ABC at 8 p.m. I am under NDA. That's the most I can say, but tune in. Everything I'm doing is going to change. It's going to change it for these cats, y'all. And we're going to do it together. This is
beautiful.
Every time y'all see me on anything, I'm representing for us, for this community.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Thank you. Thank you. I want to announce our raffle prize winners. We did a drawing while we were doing our Q&A here, and we've got Carrie Packer is one of the winners. We've got Alejandra Lopez Arala is one of the winners. Annette Schachman is one of the winners. And Chris Alterberg is one of the winners. So those are our 4 winners. And we'll put that in the chat maybe. And then we'll follow up with you for sure. I wanted to show, since I didn't get to show Don's picture, I wanted to show the trophy and thank Dr.G and Rascal Charities for sponsoring it. The problem with glass is it's hard to read or take a picture of. But it's got a nice marble base and it's engraved and it's quite nice. I wish you could see it a little better. Community Cat Champion. Yeah, it's hard to see, but gave it a shot.
Oh,
We'll
that
try
is
to
so
post a
dope.
picture of it
And
on the Facebook page.
that's so dope. And the fact that it's named after Toby is awesomeness.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if he was here today, but hopefully
I
you got to
love
see
Toby if he is. What up, King?
it. Vicki, do you want to just mention about the evaluations?
Yes, I do. Folks, we will send that evaluation out in the post email with the handouts again, and maybe new handouts too that we think you could use based on our conversations today. If you would please fill them out and email them back. Not only do they help all of us think about what kind of work we need to do in the future to help you and continue the movement forward, but also we can share with our funders, and they want to know what's going on and what's needed and what they need to fund. So the more you can get those evaluations in, the better it will help us do our work.
Great. Any closing thoughts, guys? Since we got a few minutes here, if
Fix the fixers.
That's right. Fix the fixer. That's the takeaway. All right. Well, again, thanks everybody for attending. We really appreciate it. We hope to be back live next year. We want to thank Dr. Gonzalez again, Gregory Willey again, Tabitha again, if you're on the road or you see this later, and Sterling, thanks so much. We can't tell you enough how much. Yeah.
Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
Well,
Motivated us. And
Yeah.
Dan, one last thing, we will
Sure.
also go through the chat and the Q&A, and anything we didn't pick up or things we need to answer, we'll get in the post email too.
okay, we'll clean all that up. Okay. All right. Thanks again, everybody. We'll close it out now. Take care.
Thank
Good
y'all
luck
for
with that
having me.
trapping,
you.
Greg.